is indeed here. Let me know if the audio is coming through clearly. Voice is a bit low compared to the music, I think. Okay, let me fiddle with that. Turn it down a smidge. Alright, turn my mic up a smidge. Cool. Alright, that should be better. This was a very random idea for a stream, but I have been thinking nonstop about Pokemon Red and Blue lately, and I need to talk about it, or I'm gonna, like, flip my lid. So, what better excuse for a stream than that, right? And I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. They're kind of weird games, honestly. But, like, the fun kind of weird. Yellow. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, just wait until like 6:15 and then I'll explain what exactly I'm doing here. And then we can get started. And if anyone has any strong opinions, they can contest me. Always love to have a good discussion about game design. Oh, nice. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, Finn definitely took some inspiration from quite a few Pokemon. Ampharos, Dragonite, both definitely big inspirations. Because they're very cute. And I wanted Finn to be cute. Hello, good evening, or afternoon, or wherever it is where you are. But here it's evening, so good evening. Yeah, Ampharos is so cool. I love that it's like a lighthouse. Or, you know, acts as a lighthouse bulb would. That's a fun idea for an electric type. And it's also like, it's not really, you can't really tell what it's based on super well. It's just kind of a random sheep dragon thing, but that's kind of nice. It's just like a fun monster. I like designs that are kind of just a random monster that's more based around a theme than like a particular animal or mythology or whatever. I'm gonna get real nerdy in this stream too. You know, prepare for some deep knowledge. Couldn't find the last 3 levels. I don't know what that means. Just 5 more minutes. Oh, and Cavern of Dreams. Okay. If you want a little hint, I would look a little more carefully around the last level, the last main level of the game. There may be some secrets you may have missed. Oh, I love this song. This is a good playlist. This is relaxing SNES music on YouTube. Very nice. Very good for falling asleep too, or just chilling. I think this is a Tim Follin song, actually. Hang on. Equinox. Let's see if I was right. Equinox, SNES composer. Tim Follin and Jeff Follin, yeah. They're so cool. This is a tangent, but there were some early composers that did like crazy stuff with the, you know, early video game sound chips, like NES and SNES. They got like atmosphere, they got like banger songs. Anyway. Oh, Vinemon. That's cool. I have a monster in that game, Dumpling, who you also would have seen in Cavern of Dreams. It's a character I put in a character I try and put in every project I work on. I don't. So I think with the Fallen Brothers, I think they're called. They were, you know, they were also adept at working with like microcode and like, you know, advanced. You know, they weren't just composers. They actually understood the hardware enough to be able to like do some funky advanced stuff with it. David Wise did something similar too for the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack, and you can, I mean, with both, you know, like Plock, thank you, Plock, amazing soundtrack, Donkey Kong Country, amazing soundtrack. You can tell they understood the hardware. I think that's really cool. Alrighty, I think we can get started. I think everyone who wants to show up has shown up, so let's try this out. Let's have some fun. So right here, I have a list of every fully evolved Pokemon from Generation 1. And what I want to do is, I want to look at each of them and ask, is this a good concept, and is it executed well based on how it is in the first games, in Red and Blue and Yellow, right? So, you know, does it make, when you play through those games, are they interesting? Do they show up and like make interesting appearances in enemy teams? Are they fun to use for yourself? Do they have an interesting role? And, you know, on the contrary, are they boring? Do they not have a use? Are they just kind of like taking up space? Do they feel weird and not like they're in the right place in the game world? That's kind of what I want to look at, and I think it's interesting to think about in the context of, you know, if someone's going to make a game today in the same genre, right? It's like, what are some good ideas they can look at for examples of how to do monster design really well? And what are some examples to look at of like, okay, what can I avoid for redundant designs or designs that don't match their concept and their execution? I hope that makes sense. It's kind of I guess it's kind of a weird angle, right? This isn't like how good of a Pokemon it is in terms of like strength or, you know, how quickly it can beat the game. This is just like, is it a good concept that makes the game more fun and interesting? And does it use the mechanics of the game well to like show its personality or what it can do physically or whatever, right? That's what I want to go through here. No, this is not alphabetical. This is just, I think... Oh, no, it is. I'm sorry, it is. But only fully evolved. I'm basically... I want to treat each line as its own sort of group, right? Like, so Zubat and Golbat are going to be rated as one thing, because that's kind of like, you know, in the context of the game, if you catch a Zubat, you're going to get a Golbat eventually. So that's kind of like... It's the same experience, right? So yeah, basically only ranking fully evolved Pokemon because I'm ranking them as a whole family together. And definitely some of the first and second stages will factor into how much I like a Pokemon, because sometimes they're used in a really interesting way, but sometimes they feel just totally boring, and so that'll be ranked lower. If you have like a 3-stage family where every single stage of the family feels exactly the same, I don't think that's interesting. You know, I'd like to see a concept change and evolve in some way. So I hope that all makes sense. Hope I explained the concept well enough. I imagine if people come in later, I'll have to re-explain it, but for now, I think that's fine. Alright, so let's get started. Let's jump into this. So I'm going to, let's see, I have Cerebi up here, so let's just go in the Pokedex order, because we're kind of going to talk about them like as you come across them throughout the game. And we'll see, you know, because that's another factor that factors into it, is it available early in the game or late in the game? And in that context, what does it do for the game design, right? Some Pokemon have the problem where they're fine, like they work, but you only find them really late, and sometimes in a place where it's really inconvenient to raise them, or, you know, there's something you could have gotten earlier that does exactly the same thing, so there's no point to using it. So, starting from the top, we have Venusaur. And Venusaur, I like it. So hopefully by explaining what I think about Venusaur, I'll kind of explain better what I'm trying to do here. So the good things about Venusaur is that it's a grass type you get right at the start, and that's cool because grass type has a very dynamic weaknesses and strengths. So, you know, it beats Brock, for example, which is really nice. It teaches you about status because it has like Leech Seed and Poison Powder and Sleep Powder and all these things. So it's pretty interesting to use. And as the game goes on, it kind of shows you like also like, oh man, you know, some types have weaknesses. Grass does not deal well with certain types, so you need some teammates to make the best use of it, right? So all that is good. And it has, so we're going to have this move pulls over on the side here. Venusaur. Yeah, Vine Whip, Poison Powder, Razor Leaf. It learns moves that make sense for its character design. The only problem I have with Venusaur and this whole line is that it's a poison type for some reason, and it doesn't look like a poison type or act like a poison type. It gets Poison Powder, but that's just kind of more of a general grass filling move. that's a little wonky. I don't love that, especially since the other two starters start out as a pure fire and pure water type. Having a grass poison type just kind of, I don't know, doesn't feel right. So I like it. I think it's good. I think it does good things for the game design, but I think it's a little weird that it's a poison type. That's probably my only problem with it. And then the next starter would be Charizard. Using my favorite form as the face of that line. Oh, okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, there are some of these guys that I would... I think the first or second form is more interesting than the final form, but, you know, this is a useful shorthand. So Charizard. Charizard makes me feel sad. And that's because in Red and Blue, if you got a Charmander and raised it all the way up to a Charizard, you wouldn't be able to teach it Fly. In fact, it learns 0 flying moves, even as a Charizard, until Yellow version. And that, again, I feel like, you know, you're a kid and you get a Charizard, like the ultimate fantasy is like riding around on this cool dragon you have and like flying around different places. So that's kind of sad. Beyond that, its moves are, you know, they fit its design fine, but it's kind of just a fire type. And also, if I get to the end of this tier list tonight, we'll be talking about more fire types and the fact that fire types in the first generation were not great. The only things they hit for super effective damage are Bug and Grass and Ice, and Bug and Grass are both also hit by Flying and Poison, which there are a lot of already. And there's only one Ice type that's weak to fire moves in this game, because all the other ones are Water type, part Water, part Ice. So, just in general, being a fire type in the first generation games is kind of lame, but at least you get Charizard early enough to where it can fight all the Bug and Grass types that you fight early on, and that's nice, and it's still cool. So I think, even though they kind of screwed up in the Red and Blue, at least they fixed it in Yellow. So I think we'll put it, and I like it. I think it's good enough. I find only funny one grass type is single type in Gen 1. Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to Tangela too, because it's weird that they chose Tangela to be the only pure grass elemental when it... Anyway, we'll get there. And finally we have Blastoise, who is also... I like it. Again, it's kind of like Charizard, where it's like... Honestly, it's not that different from any other water type, just like a Charizard is not really that different from any other fire type. And it's a pure water type, so it doesn't even have like a fun secondary typing. But you know, again, you get it early in the game, you know, first thing in the game, it teaches you about elemental matchups, because it does really well against Brock, but then you run into some grass types and it does not do so hot. In fact, you have to fight Surge and Erica, who are electric and grass type respectively, and Blastoise kind of struggles with that, so it's like, okay, you know, it needs teammates, it can't just do everything by itself. Yeah, I think it learned some interesting moves by TM, but yeah, I'm not crazy about it, but it's good. It does the job. Being a turtle, it makes sense it is high defense, so yeah, I'm okay with you, Blastoise. You do your job fine. And it learns Hydro Pump, which is cool because it has cannons on its back. That's kind of sick. Okay, so yeah, all the starters, I think all the starters do a totally fine job of being what they are. You know, they represent their elements, they have strengths and weaknesses, they're all reasonably strong, but they're not, like, ridiculously broken. You definitely can beat the game using mostly just them, but, like, you know, they're not, like, completely destroying everything in their path. Yeah, so let's move on to who comes after you, Blastoise. Caterpie. Okay, so I think both Beedrill and Butterfree are excellent. I think these guys really do a great job of showing off what makes Pokemon unique as a franchise, which is the whole evolution mechanic, right? Because, you know, in your typical most games, and like, you know, most Monster Tamers or whatever kind of game, your unit doesn't change. You just get one character, you know, like Caterpie would be one character, and Butterfree would be a separate character, right? In this game, it's, you know, it's a progression. You get to see this character evolve from just this little worm that can barely do anything into this either, you know, butterfly that can spread status around, which is a really cool, interesting thing to be doing early in the game, or Beedrill, which actually gets to use bug-type attacks, which is extremely rare. We're going to talk about that when we get to some of the later bugs in the game, but that's extremely rare, and that's cool because bug-type is actually good in this game because it can hit Psychic and Poison types who are really strong and everywhere. But Poison isn't super strong, but they're everywhere. And Psychic types are really strong. Beedrill can hit them, super effective, and probably knock them out in one hit because it hits pretty hard. And you know, so the player's rewarded for like putting in the effort of raising this weak sort of bug. There's a, you know, it fits biologically. That's like, okay, it turns from a larvae to a cocoon to a big evolved bug. I just like everything about them. I think they do a really good job of exploring a cool concept, and the fact that they kind of fall off in the late game also kind of fits because, you know, insects are known for pupating and becoming their adult form and then dying pretty soon afterwards, and the Pokemon equivalent of that is becoming not useful to your team anymore after a certain point of the game. And that's perfectly fine. They don't need to be, you know, they don't need to be as strong as Dragonite to be useful from a game design perspective. And I think they both do their job really well at that. So, yeah, big fan. Big fan. Also, Metapod and Cocoon are both just funny because they can only harden. That's funny. I like that. Blastoise feels like a mon you see later gen due to its weird biomechanical nature. Yeah. Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't give it a Steel type. That'd be kind of cool. But, still a cool design. Still reasonably cool. Pidgey. This line makes me so sad. So, you know how I was talking about how, like, Blastoise and Venusaur and Charizard all, like, are kind of, you know, it's this elemental type, and you get it, and you get to use the elemental type and learn about its strengths and weaknesses. Pidgey, the first time it gets a flying attack is wing attack, and if you don't bother waiting for wing attack, and you keep evolving it, you only get wing attack level 31, which is really late in the game. You know, far beyond the point where you'd ever really want a flying move, except for, like, I guess fighting types, and it's so weak, it's not even worth using. So this thing basically just gets to use normal moves, not even really any good ones, until very late in the game where it can use Fly. And that's really all it gets to do. It's not fun. It's not fun, it's just boring to use. And its stats are also very mediocre, and it evolves really late. Like 36 is like, I think the start is even evolved rather than that. Hang on, let me see. No, okay, so it's about the same as Charizard, but with Charizard you're getting this really cool Fire Flying type. Pidgeot you're getting a very, very mediocre normal flying type with no good moves. Yeah, no, I wish it was better. It feels like it should be better, but it isn't. Yeah, I'm gonna put it in Snore. Just every other flying type is more interesting than... Where even are you, Pidgeot? I should know the alphabet. There we go. I like how it looks, though. But it's also another 3-stage design that every single stage feels exactly the same. So that's boring, too. Yeah, just... Sorry, Pidgeot. Next we have Rattata and Raticate. These guys, on the other hand, you know, you find them right along Pidgey. You might expect me to think they're kind of boring, but no, they slap. I'm going to put Raticate in Excellent. Raticate is kind of similar to Butterfree and Beedrill, where it's like, it in the early game it's really strong and it kind of falls off in the late game, which again I think is good. It's an interesting role for a character to fill, and I think it fills it well. But what I especially like about Raticate is it gets 2 signature moves, both of which are pretty cool, right? Hyper Fang is ridiculously strong for the point of the game you get it, so it feels awesome to use. And Super Fang is a very interesting, unique move. It's not that amazing, but you know, it can help. beyond that isn't too much. It's pretty simple and linear, but it's strong. It does its job well. Yeah, I like it. I think it works. I think it works as a gameplay design. Even though it's not that special. Honestly, I could be tempted to put it and I like it because it really only just does normal type moves, and that's it. Besides some random TMs that it can't use very well. But I think I like it enough to keep it excellent. I like the fact that the signature moves. That's cool. That's always cool when you get to have an exclusive move. It makes it feel more special to use. Okay. Next we have Spearow and Fearow, which are the cool Pidgeot. I like these guys. They do what what you would expect Pidgeot to do, which is have flying moves and be able to use flying moves and get them throughout the course of the game. It gets Peck and Drill Peck. It also gets Mirror Move a lot earlier than Pidgeot, which is cool because, it's not a great move, but in the early game, at least, you don't have anything else you can be using. Maybe it could do something. Pidgeot, I think, gets this at like level 50, where you really don't need it. Besides that, they're really just kind of a very standard normal flying type, but at least it does its job. And at least Mirror Move early is kind of fun. And its move pool is, reasonably flavorful. Fury Attack, okay, it's kind of an Angry Bird. Sure. I think it works fine. But not that crazy. Ah, I appreciate that. I'm kind of speaking at a lower register because I don't want to be too loud and disturb the neighbors. Ekans. look, I might also point out some sprites as we go along through this. Look at this Ekans sprite. Look at this dude. I guess it's like duck lips? That is such a strange sprite, but I kind of like how absurd it looks. It doesn't even have teeth! It doesn't have teeth! Wait a minute. Does Ekans not have fangs? Does it just gum you? I never realized... That's another thing about Gen 1 Pokemon. This doesn't have anything to do with the tier list. A lot of their designs are just kind of missing, like, random elements you would expect. Like Ekans doesn't have fangs. I guess it just gums you to death. Anyway, as a gameplay concept, Ekans is good. I think I might put it in excellent. So the thing about Ekans is, it's I think the first poison type you get besides, actually no, it isn't. You get Weedle, Bulbasaur first, but it's a pure poison type. It's a snake. All reasonable things. It learns moves that make a lot of sense for it, like Wrap, Bite, Glare. These are all useful moves that feel good for a snake to use. Glare is also unique to it, which is cool. It's the only move that can paralyze ground types, I think, except for Body Slam, so that's cool. It has its own gameplay niche. You also, I don't know why it learns Earthquake and Rock Slide, but that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think they do a good job of feeling like a snake. Nothing exceptional, but yeah, I like it. Good job, Arbuck. Where are you? There we go. I like it. These Pogcans. Oh. Alright, next up is Pikachu. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one before. Look at these absolute banger sprites, by the way. Oh my gosh. Pikachu. Finding a Pikachu in Viridian Forest. You know what? Actually, hang on. Before I even continue talking about this, I'm going to put it... Where are you? I'm looking for Raichu, that's why. I honestly think this is excellent. I think it's really fun to have a super early game rare Pokemon that you can, it's not impossible to find, it just takes a little bit of searching. And getting rewarded with this cool type that you really, like, electric types are kind of hard to come by, right? And having electric type early is good because you have to fight Misty, who is pretty hard. That's all cool. you know, level up move pool is alright. It's a stone evolution. And actually, yeah, I guess we should talk about stones, evolution stones, because Kanto is very, uses them quite a lot. So, sort of the mechanic behind stones is, you know, you have various Pokemon who can evolve with them, and because it's an item, you can use it at whatever level you want, so that's obviously a big bonus. You can get a Raichu quite early. But as a trade-off, it stops learning moves, so you're like, you know, you kind of have to weigh between, do I keep it unevolved with weaker stats, but have it learn moves, or do I think its moveset is good enough and I'm going to evolve it now? Getting to decide that yourself as opposed to waiting to a specific level is really cool. I like that concept a lot. I guess the only main issue with Pikachu here is that these moves are very bad. And it learns them kind of, you know, Thunder is okay, but it learns it pretty late. So you probably don't want to wait for Raichu. You probably just want to evolve it right away with the Thunderstone and then give it, like, a Thunderbolt TM. But I like the idea, and the fact, again, that you can get it so early is fun and cool. So I think I like it enough to put it in excellent. You always feel good using a Pikachu, I think. Except for in Yellow version where it can't evolve, so it's terrible. Am I actually... you know what? Is there... There's no Pikachu here. Pikachu is kind of separate because it's the starter in Yellow, and it's terrible in that game. But Raichu gets a total pass. So just imagine Pikachu in the wonky tier, I guess. Alright, next up. Sandshrew. Look at this sprite. Right here. This is the best sprite in the entire world. It's so perfect. This is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It has nothing to do with how Sandshrew is as a game concept, but goodness gracious. This Pokemon is just cute in general, but that sprite in particular is just chef's kiss. Unfortunately, this is another... I don't like Sandshrew and Sandslash as just like Pokemon to use. They don't learn any ground moves by level up, which feels terrible because they're like really the kind of first exposure to ground type you get. The best move they get is Slash, and they get that early, and then they get nothing. The rest of their moves are terrible. You can teach a Dig with a TM, which helps, but still they're just very whatever generic ground types with nothing else going on except for Slash, which is nice and it fits their design, but in Swords Dance is kind of cool. I'm okay with Sandslash, but it does feel very boring compared to like every other ground type in the game. And again, I wish it learned a ground move by level up, because having to use your Dig TM on this feels bad. I think, okay, I'm gonna put a boring tier above this, because it doesn't feel wonky. It's not like, you know what? No, Snore. You get a Snore from me. That's right, Sandslash. I'm sorry, buddy, but you're boring. Same. Sandshrew is my... I apologize, by the way. I'm basically swapping between tabs every time to check the chat, so I'm going to be responding to comments at the end of my little review. But I guess it's better that I'm not being distracted by every message that pops up. I kind of get my thoughts out and then have a little laugh at whatever you guys write down. But yes, I would also take a bullet for Sandshrew. Nidoran... Okay, so I'm basically going to rank Nidoqueen and Nidoking at the same time, because they really are the same design concept all the way through. They learn slightly different moves and slightly different stats, but they are effectively the same thing. And honestly, I really feel like both of these guys are wonky. There's a lot that's kind of weird about these character designs. First of all, you know, them being a poison type is totally reasonable. It's like a poisonous rabbit, like it's kind of, you know, some mammals have poison, like platypi and I want to say echidnas. It's kind of like a little fun fantasy concept. Okay, it's a poisonous mammal with spines on it. So sure, that makes sense. It learns poison moves. Sure. Then you use a Moonstone. I don't know what would ever, like, I don't know how kids even figured out that it evolves with a Moonstone, because nothing about its design implies at all that it has anything to do with the moon. And then once you use the Moonstone, it becomes a ground type, poison ground type, and I don't know why Nidoqueen and Nidoking are ground type. There's nothing about them that's like anything to do with that. You know, they become bipedal. If anything, they probably interact with the ground less because they stand up. They're ascended. So that's kind of weird. You know, that never really made sense to me flavor-wise. You know, they are fun to use. Obviously, they're incredibly strong. They're like, I think Nidoking is probably like the best Pokemon to use in game because you get it super early and it can learn every TM it ever wants. But again, also, I don't know why they learned Thunderbolt and Blizzard and all these elemental moves. Like, it seems very random. I don't quite know what the whole concept was behind these guys. But I don't hate them. They feel kind of iconic to Gen 1 as just like these kind of random but very powerful and interesting beasts. I don't hate them at all, but they do feel kind of wonky to me, so that's where they're going to go. It's also interesting from a flavor perspective that they were trying to do like sexual dimorphism this early on. Maybe the ground typing is due to similar look to a later Pokemon. Oh, they do kind of look Rhydon-esque, if that's what you're getting at. Yeah, I don't know, maybe, you know, since Generation 1 was developed back when types were kind of more like based on RPGs, right? So ground type is kind of like an earth type. Maybe there's some association there in Japanese I don't know about. But yeah, I don't know. They feel kind of random to me, even though they're cool. Okay. Next is Clefairy and Clefable. Bangers. These guys are amazing. These are so... I love Clefairy and Clefable. First of all, you only find them in Mount Moon, which is nice and early, so you actually get to use them. That's a perfectly flavorful place to find them, because it's like this... It's a mountain that goes close to the moon, which is like such a fun idea for like a cave, like having an association with that. The fact that it evolves with the Moonstone makes perfect sense. It has really fun level up moves. It gets Metronome, which is like one of my favorite moves ever. That's so much fun. Double Slap is funny, you know? And the fact that it learns all these TMs makes sense because it's kind of magical feeling, right? You can imagine it using all these elemental moves. And that also makes it fun to use because it's super flexible. And its stats kind of, you know, its stats are generalist, but that makes sense because it can kind of do whatever it wants. Yeah, I love these guys. They're fun to use. They make sense. They're iconic. Yeah, great. Super great. Moonstones might be because of the strong association in Japan between bunnies and the moon. Oh, because Nidoran... I guess they are kind of bunnies, aren't they? So they're like bunny monsters. Okay. Okay. I can see that. That, you know, from a cultural perspective, that makes sense. It'd be nice if they did a better job translating that in some way. Like maybe there's an NPC who talked about it or something, but I like that. You know what? Even just thinking about that, because I do like these. I don't like putting them in wonky. That feels kind of mean to them because I really do like using them and they're fun. So I'll put them in. I like it, even though they are a little bit strange. I still like them. Yeah, you guys might convince me. You know, you guys can convince me to put things higher or lower because this is just, you know, me kind of rambling and thinking about things. But I might, you know, I might miss things. Any hoozle. Vulpix and Ninetales. Alright. These guys... So, yeah, you know, I was talking about stone evolutions earlier. There's quite a few of them. Some stone evolutions do the concept well. Some of them do it poorly. This is a good one. I think this is another excellent, honestly, because... where are you? Ninetales. Ninetales, here we go. Because you get Vulpix pretty early, Route 7, Route 8. That's before, you know, that's before some gyms where you can actually use it, like Erica. That's nice. So Fire type has a use in that case. Oops. There we the level up moves it gets are actually useful, so you might want to keep it as a Vulpix for a while, but they're not so like mandatory that you feel forced to, because you can still teach it Fire Blast through TM. It learns Confuse Ray, which is cool because it's kind of like this cursing fox. It's not just like a generic fire type, it actually has some flavor to it. It puts a curse on you. Yeah, it's just, again, really good flavor, fun design. It's rewarding to use because when you evolve it, it's quite strong, good stats. Yeah, I don't think I have anything bad to say about it. I think the only thing I would say, it'd be cool if it learned some cooler moves like Psychic, because it's kind of this mystical, magical fox, but I get it, you know. I get the moves it learns. It's still pretty cool. Confuse Ray is cool. Yeah, I like these guys. Next up is... Oh. Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff. Okay. So... The problem... Oh... I want to like Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff, but they don't... They feel horrible to use because their stats are very bad. Look, oh my gosh. Really, like, you know, having high HP does not really... I think maybe when they were designing the game they thought having a high hit point stat was good, but it really means nothing if you have low defenses and its speed is really bad. And so, but okay, so, you know, it has the whole thing where it can learn 100 elemental moves like Clefairy can, but I don't know why it can, because nothing about it is like magical. It's themed around like singing and stuff, and like being a balloon, which is moves fit fine, but like, and then you have the fact that it evolves with the Moonstone, which again, I don't know why. Jigglypuff is not a rabbit. I guess Wigglytuff is, but you wouldn't know that before you evolve it. Its stats are still really bad. And you know, Clefairy, you find it exactly the same time. It just does everything it does better and more flavorfully and cooler. So I'm just gonna put in boring. It doesn't do anything. Wow, just looking at this, we don't have anything in wonky right now. I think we'll get there later in the game because there are some concepts that are cool but don't feel like they were executed right. That's kind of where those will go. But Wigglytuff is just, it doesn't do anything. Yeah, worst Clefairy, exactly. Alright, cool. Next up, Zubat and Golbat, everyone's favorite. People love these. Shoutouts to my friend who adores this whole line. They are very cool, and Crobat is very cool, but Crobat is not in this game, so all you get is Zubat and Golbat. And here is another example of KANTO in Generation 1 giving the poison type to everything, even though they're not poisonous. Nothing about Zubat or Golbat is poisonous. They don't learn poison moves except for Toxic, which everything learns. Bats are not poisonous in real life. I guess they can give you rabies, but like, you know, that's not that special. But on the other hand, you know, ignoring that whole type thing, they're definitely a very flavorful kind of like character. You know, everyone remembers Zubat and Golbat because of what they do. You know, they flinch you, they confuse you, they do annoying things, and that, you know, it's not fun to fight against, but that makes sense for a bat in an RPG, right? That it's fitting. It fits the character. It does also mean that it's not fun to use because using this against an NPC opponent is just not fun. You know, it does, you know, it really cannot do damage well. And Zubat's stats are also really bad, and Golbat's are not much better. So I think between the fact that its type is like doesn't make much sense to me and the fact that it's not fun to use, I think I'm gonna put it in wonky. Like, I get what they're going for, and it makes sense, but it'd be cool if it, like, if you went through the trouble of raising it, it'd be cool if it had like some cool ultimate move or something. Because right now it gets Wing Attack, which is worse than Peck, and Haze, which is completely useless. Yeah, sorry Golbat. Not quite doing it for me. Would have been cool as a dark flying type. Yeah! Like, honestly, in this gen, I think it would make sense as a normal flying type. Which is obviously not that exciting, but, like, it would at least fit better. Yeah, Zubat does get too much hate. You know, it's a it makes sense. It makes caves more interesting, and you have to like think about dealing with like, okay, how do I deal with Zubat and Golbat? I need to do something fast to outspeed them so they don't confuse me. Maybe I can paralyze them with an electric type. Pikachu becomes more useful because it can deal with them. They're actually, man, honestly, I'm talking myself into getting into liking them because they're good as an encounter. They're just not fun to use. I'll keep it a wonky for now, but at least it's a well-defined unit. So I might come back to that, but alright. Let's move on to Oddish. I love Oddish. It's so cute. I love the fact that it's just a guy with feet and leaves. It's so simple, but it feels like an Earthbound enemy almost, where it's just a guy wandering around being a thing, and you love that. And yeah, I think this is another very flavorful. You know, it's a grass type and a poison type that feels like a grass and poison type. It does grassy and poisonous things. Yeah, it's not, you know, not the most crazy concept in the world, but I think of the various grass poison types in the first generation, I think it fits the concept best. It's a stone evolution, which is cool. Petal Dance is actually a pretty fun move, even though it's not that great. Yeah, I vibe with Oddish. I think I'll put it in, where's Valve? I think I'll put it in Excellent just because I think it does the concept the best. The only problem is there are other Pokemon who do the concept too, which is Victreebel and Venusaur. But it's a version exclusive, so you're not going to get Victreebel with it, so that cuts out one redundancy. And if you didn't choose Venusaur, Vileplume could be very useful for dealing with Misty and the electric guy, Surge. So yeah, I think it does its job very well as a grass dude. Is Jiggly singing ability unique? No, Clefairy learns Sing too. That's like, oh, let me make sure I'm not talking out of my butt. But I'm pretty sure it learns Sing. Yeah, it learns Sing too, which fits it as well. Jigglypuff doesn't do anything useful or interesting. It is just worse Clefairy, which is sad because it's a fun character design, but they did it really dirty. It's not fun to use in game at all. Anyway, yeah, Vileplume, very good execution of a concept. Paris and Parasect. Alright. These are some of my favorite guys of all time, and you might be surprised at this because most people think that Paris and Parasect are terrible and not worth using at all. In the first game, there's some interesting type matchup changes that kind of change how they work, right? So let's take a look at their moveset first of all. Stun Spore is really good, Spore is obviously amazing, Slash is really good, Growth is really good, Leech Life seems bad at first because it's a weak bug move. In any other generation that would be tragically bad, but in this game, Bug is weak to poison, and Kanto is full of poison types, and also Bug is the only thing super effective against Psychic types, and Psychic types are really scary. So Leech Life, honestly not bad at all, really isn't, especially since these guys are actually hit pretty hard defensively. So they have a useful role throughout the game. Early game, they hit pretty hard. Late game, they spread a bunch of status. Also, obviously the character concept of the mushroom growing on the back of the insect is so cool. Being a bug grass type is really interesting because you have 3-4 times weaknesses, but, you know, if you just use other Pokemon for those matchups, like a rock Pokemon, for example, you'll find that Parasect can deal with electric types and grass types and water types. That's really good. That's really useful. It does a lot of good things. I love Parasect, and I think it's actually amazing in the first game. It's not super strong, but it gets the job done and it's fun to use. And I think that really makes it good. Paris gang. Yeah, I love this guy. It also can learn Dig right away, which makes it really, really good against electric types. So that's a fun way to deal with them. Alright, next up. Venonat and Venomoth. Okay, so first of all, Venonat is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. It is baby. It is so baby. When I was in Boy Scouts as a kid, this is a brief aside, I hope I'm not boring people, but as a brief aside, when I was in Boy Scouts as a kid, me and my father made a hobby car together to compete in like a hobby car race, like a little tiny wooden car. And we called it Venom, and we put my figurine of a Venonat, we stuck it in the driver's seat, and we painted the whole thing purple and gave it like little racing stripes. It was, I love that. I wish I still had it, but that makes me think fondly of Venonat. However, in terms of game design, this guy is really just Butterfree, but you get it way later in the game, and for some reason, even though it looks like a bug flying type, it's bug poison type. It's not fun to use because you have to train Venonat for a while, and you don't get Venonat until kind of late in the game, where bug and poison is really not good. Yeah, I don't know. I want them to be cool, but in this game they are just not cool at all. At least Venomoth has a good special stat. That's kind of cool, but I think they're boring. Again, it's a darn shame because I think the design is so cool, but they just kind of feel redundant. Venomoth, there we go. Yeah. Every moth Pokemon goes hard confirmed. Yeah, I even like I used to think Venomoth was like kind of disappointing as a design because Venonat is so fun, like this fun little like bunny grub guy. But then I played Generation 9, Scarlet and Violet, and went to Area 0. I guess spoilers for the end of Scarlet and Violet. Went to Area 0 and there was a bunch of Venomoth flying around under like the bold white light and like the weird environment of that area. Venomoth is kind of cool. It's like a huge like pale moth. It's actually kind of cool looking. And in later games it actually gets some like cool stuff to do, but in this game, no, it's just a really boring bug type. It doesn't get any bug moves, doesn't get any poison moves in the poison type. Sorry. Alright, that's Venomoth. Sorry, Venomoth. Next up, oh yeah, alright. This is another S tier. I love Diglett and Dugtrio. These guys are so funny. They're literally, it's whack-a-mole. The whole design is whack-a-mole, so they're really fast, but if you hit them, they die because it's whack-a-mole, so you hit them once and they die. And the fact that it's a whack-a-mole combined with a real mole, so it gets like ground powers, it gets slash because it has claws, it gets dig and earthquake, which are very strong, but also very flavorful. The fact that it's unique for a ground type because it's fast and frail. The fact that you get it right next to Eldritch Lieutenant Surge, so you can like, you know, it's a really useful counter in case you don't have anything good for him. The fact that it has its own area, Diglett's Cave, which is very flavorful, again, because it digs tunnels, and it's a tunnel between two different areas of the map. Banger! These guys are so good! And the fact that, I mean, this has nothing to do with the game design, but Kanto, again, has some, like, there are some tropes to the designs, like, for example, evolution is just, you know, you have one Diglett, you have 3 Diglett as Dugtrio. But it's whack-a-mole! So of course there are more popping out. You know, that's how it evolves. It makes sense. I love these guys. I think they're great. They're A+. I'd like Venomoth a lot. I hope we get a more Venonat-like regional evolution one of these days. Yes, I want a Mothman evolution of Venonat. I think that would be super cool. But for now, we'll have to settle with Venomoth. Meowth and Persian. These are, okay, so in every game after Generation 1, these guys are terrible and not fun to use. They just don't do anything. But in the first generation, ooh, I was about to say they get slashed. They get slashed pretty late. So okay, so I want to talk real quick about Generation 1 in terms of mechanics, because one thing that kind of makes Pokemon in this game work better than they do in other games is how critical hits work. Critical hits are based on speed, so the faster you are, the more times you will get a critical hit. And that's useful because you can have kind of a bad attack stat like Persian. Persian has 70 attack, which is not good, but you're very fast, so you're going to crit a lot. And then Slash increases your critical hit chance even further, so if you're fast enough, you're going to be critting all the time with Slash, which makes it really strong. Also, these guys get Payday, which is a very funny move. It's not that great, but it is funny. You know, getting money through a move is like a really interesting, you know, very unique kind of concept for an RPG. And of course, these guys get it because they're cats with a coin. You know, that fits. They are kind of, having to wait that long for Slash makes them not that great to use. They do get some... they get Bubble Beam and Water Gun for some reason. That's kind of weird. I think I like them. I think they fit... they feel enough like a cat to feel kind of unique among other normal types. You know, they use their claws, they get a lot of critical hits because they're sneaky, they're fast. I like all that. I think it works well enough. Yeah, nothing too crazy though. I wish they kept the coin motif on Persian. Yeah, no, Persian is definitely... like, I'm not really factoring in the character design too much in this tier list, except for, like, whether it matches its type. But yeah, as a character design, Persian is like a cougar with a gem in its forehead. Meowth is a lot more fun. It is a shame. But Persian, you know, Persian is still, like... I mean, these sprites, like, this guy definitely still has personality. This looks like a cat. This looks like a mean cat that will mess you up. It's fine. And later, you know, a lot of... man, there's so many things I can talk about in regards to Pokemon. And one of the things is, like, this just does not feel as good to look at as, like, especially, oh my god, this, like, little menu sprite does not feel as good to look at as these, like, silly little Gen 1 sprites where it's, like, going, meow! Now, this is a cat. This is a prowling little cat. This is just, like, I don't know. It's not doing anything. Obviously, they animate in battle, but usually the animations are not that interesting either. Anyway, getting way off topic. Alright, so that's Persian done. Let's move on to... oh boy. Psyduck and Golduck. You want to talk about evolutions that make the previous evolution, like, feel wasted. Psyduck is such a funny little duck. With such a funny little, you know, lore to it. The fact that it gets headaches, and it looks so silly looking. That's all so fun. But then you get to use it in-game, and it's the most boring, basic, generic water type with nothing going, you know... It gets confusion. It doesn't even learn a water move until level 52. And Golduck is just the most boring, generic stats. Nothing interesting about it. Boring. It's a... this Generation 1 has a big problem with boring water types, and Golduck is like maybe the primo boring water type. And there may be others, but it is one of them. You don't even get it early in the game. You get it kind of late in the game, where you probably already have a water type. Like, it just... oh, yellow type you get on Route 6. Like, on the route? Surfing. Okay, no. No, it just... you would never use it in-game, and if you do, there's nothing interesting about it. It's a darn shame. I think the idea behind weird Gen 1 normal type move pools is that they make up for lackluster type with crazy coverage. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think more in terms of, like, and I'm thinking about, like, what elemental moves a Pokemon can get, right? I wanted to, like, kind of match the design in some way. And sometimes it does work, like, again, Clefable, for example, it's magical, so it makes sense you can use, like, elemental moves. Persian, learning electric moves, it feels kind of random. Also, Bubble Beam, Water Gun, again, like, cats hate water, so if anything, you think they'd learn, like, I don't know. I find myself wanting it to fit a little bit of the design. So that's kind of why I think about those. I don't understand why Golduck... yeah, Golduck also feels like it should be Water Psychic, and it isn't, and that just feels bad, you know? There's a lot of other Water Psychic types, so I guess it wouldn't really help that much, but it would help a little bit. Yeah, it's just very maligned. Next up, Mankey and Primeape. This is a weird one. Those of you who haven't played Gen 1 in a while, look at this level up move pool. Do you see how there's no damage dealing fighting type moves on there? You know, Seismic Toss is technically fighting type, but it deals fixed damage. So if you're using Mankey in these games, you know, the only thing you can do is teach it Submission through TM. And so you have to buy a TM for your fighting type just for it to have a fighting type move, and it's a terrible move that feels horrible to use. And that's it. They get some normal moves, which fit their design okay, you know, Fairy Swipes and Thrash. The Thrash is kind of funny for an angry monkey, but yeah, I don't know. However, in yellow, it's available really early. It gets low kick, so it can deal with Brock. So okay, all of a sudden now you have something that actually feels like a fighting type. It can deal with, you know, like rock types and stuff. That's cool. You know, it's got perfectly decent stats. So in yellow, I think it's totally solid. In red and blue, I think it's kind of a disaster. So I'm gonna average it out to just wonky. And yet, like, you know, as a fighting type, it's an angry monkey. I like its design, but it's not super interesting. I do think the evolution they gave it in the latest game is pretty dope. Doesn't look like a man or key. That's true. It's true. Look at that. That pose is kind of cool, though. Dude is gone. It's like a crane pose or something. Yeah, also, it learns Karate Chop, but Karate Chop is a normal type. I love how even in the description of the move is like, it's a normal type attack. No, I know you think it's not fighting. Normal. I get that this game was made back when they were still figuring out all the types and everything, but this really feels bad as it not being a fighting move. Like, that feels bad. Especially since it's actually a pretty good move, because it's one of those moves that has a high critical hit chance, which means that it kind of, you know, as your Pokemon gains, evolves and gets a higher speed stat, it gets even better. That's kind of cool. I like moves with high crit rate in Gen 1 because they level up with you, basically. But I just feel so bad. I feel so bad. And also, the fact that, like, Seismic Toss is a weird... The only fighting type move that gets is Seismic Toss. It doesn't look like the kind of Pokemon who can, like, lift something really heavy. It just looks like it would, like, beat the crud out of you. So yeah, not happy with the flavor of this at all. Wonky. Next up, Growlithe and Arcanine. So, these guys, this is pretty similar to Vulpix, right? You know, you get it, I think, literally the same time as Vulpix, it's just a Verge exclusive, so you got one or the other. It does most of the same things. My main problem with these two is, they don't have, like, the fun flavor of Ninetales, where it's like, you know, Ninetales is like a mystical fox, right? So it kind of got, like, that spiritual flavor. These guys are just dogs that do, I guess, very generic moves. It doesn't even... The only really good move it gets by level up is Flamethrower at level 50, which is really long to wait. That's, like, basically the end of the game. So the Firestone thing doesn't really feel nearly as good. You're either evolving it early before level 50 and just have to wait until Blaine to get Fire Blast, and until that point you have Ember? But, you know, that all being said, I will say, at least it's a fire type that's available pretty early. At least Arcanine is crazy strong when you evolve. Like, its stats are ridiculous, so at least it kind of has, like, a natural, like, strongness to it. You know, it feels strong, and that's good for a Sword evolution. I think that works. So yeah, I think I'm fine with these guys. They're not blowing me out of the water or anything, but I think they do a pretty good job of being a fire type. Next up we have... Oh boy. Poliwag, Poliwhirl, and Poliwrath. Okay. So first of all, another design I adore. Poliwhirl specifically, Look at this. Look at his face. It's... I love looking at Poliwhirl. It makes me so happy. It really feels like a mascot to me. Like, such a fun, simple but characterful design. Like, the gloves are so silly and fun. And in terms of gameplay, it's honestly really interesting. It gets a lot of fun, you know, it's a pure water type, but it gets a lot of fun moves. It gets Hypnosis because it literally is swirling its intestines to, like, perform a Hypnosis maneuver. That's really cool. You know, it gets Amnesia, which is fun. That's just a fun move to use. So that's all good. I'm totally fine with Poliwag and Poliwhirl. The problem is you get to Poliwrath, and I don't understand Poliwrath at all. it its stats become more generic than Poliwhirl's. It becomes slower and like a little bulkier. It gets a fighting type, which, like, you know, I guess it looks like a fighting type, but it doesn't learn any fighting moves except for Submission by TM, which is, as we talked about, a terrible move. You know, it kind of feels like it had a very strong identity as Poliwhirl, and it becomes Poliwrath, and it's like, I don't know. Feels very random, and like it's kind of... It's also weird. As a character design, it's weird because it's just the same thing, but a little buffer. And you think a tadpole would turn into a frog, and it doesn't, and I guess I'm okay with that if it did something interesting with it, but it just kind of turns into whatever the... I don't even know what Poliwrath is. What are you? I don't know. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't... It's not fun to use, really. Like, Poliwhirl is fun to use. Honestly, I've actually played Red and Blue and just used Poliwhirl, and it's honestly good enough to do it by itself. So if Poliwhirl was on this list, I was actually rank it higher, but Poliwrath just doesn't feel good. You like big eyeballs. I do. I do. There's some... I like round things. I like big eyeballs. I like it when characters look stupid. That's the other thing. Poliwhirl, not a care in the world, so blissful. Poliwrath is just angry, and I vibe with that less. Oh, this had to be muted. One sec, let's move forward past the muted Earthbound song. By the way, I hope you all are enjoying the music. Let me know if it's... I mean, I assume so. Yeah, let's move past Poliwrath. Ah, Abra, Kadabra, Alakazam. Where are you guys? Oh, right up top, of course. Excellent. This is one of the most, like, characterful, flavorful designs in all Generation 1. I love the fact that when you get it, it only knows Teleport. That's such a fun... Why are you not playing? Come on. Give me some Mickey Mouse. There we go. That's such a fun concept for, like, a psychic, you know, creature that it can only escape from you, and, like, you know, it makes it hard to catch and frustrating and hard to raise. But once you do, Kadabra is disgustingly powerful, right? You get this, like, you know, Psychic is obviously really good in this game, arguably too good, but, you know, from a gameplay perspective, being rewarded for training this kind of useless thing is really cool. I will say, honestly, it might be a little too easy to train it, because that's level 16 is not high, and you get confusion right away, and it kind of just destroys the game from there. But still, I love the idea of using evolution to have one stage be super weak and another stage be super strong. That's all great. And also, you know, the level up move pool is pretty cool. It gets some interesting, like, status moves, you know, recover, reflect, that's cool. Kinesis. Wait. Does it not? Hang on. Kinesis is only in yellow version? But it's only... But you wouldn't even get it by level up, because it's only on Cadet. Hang on. Alright, this is... I need to go down this rabbit hole. Okay. So you can only get Kinesis in yellow version, and if you catch a wild Kadabra, which you can only do in Cerulean Cave, where I think it would be too high level anyway. Yeah. That is so weird. That has nothing to do with the character design. That's really... That's so strange. They have a signature move they don't get to use, and that signature move is just worse Sand Attack. Anyway, I guess that's irrelevant, because no one actually gets to use Kinesis anyway. But the other thing about the Kadabra line that I get to talk about now is Trade Evolutions. And Trade Evolutions are really interesting to me, because I think Generation 1 is the only generation where they feel good to use. Because the thing about Trade Evolutions in Generation 1 is every Trade Evolution is basically, it just becomes a little bit stronger, right? Like Kadabra and Alakazam are almost exactly the same. Alakazam is just slightly higher stats. That's literally it. The same thing with Machoke and Machamp, the same thing with Graveler and Golem, same thing with Haunter and Gengar. You can use Haunter and Machoke, Kadabra, Graveler for your whole entire playthrough, and they're fine. They, you know, they're specialized enough that they have kind of whatever stats, but they can still get their job done. But if you trade with someone, they get a little upgrade, you know, and that's cool. I think that's a fine way to use trading. Obviously it sucks if you want to complete your Pokedex, but aside from that, I think that's a good use of the trade system because you don't really feel like you're missing something. It just feels like a little bonus. So yeah, overall, I think Alakazam line is super cool, super iconic. Yeah, just great. Really, really great. And speaking of Machamp, yeah, so brains are not the same as brawn in Gen 1, that's for damn sure. The problem, like in theory, everything I said about Abra, I mean, I guess actually Abra is kind of different from Machop, because Machop is ready to go right away, you know, it learns perfectly decent moves. The main problem with Machop is that fighting is just bad in Gen 1, and there are very few good fighting moves, and only one Pokemon gets the good fighting moves, and we'll get to them, but you're stuck with low kick and submission, and these guys are slow, so they don't feel very good to use. You get them kind of late. Like if you got them really early, it'd be cool to like use against normal and rock types, but you get them kind of late. Yeah, I mean they're fine. They're fine, but the lack of good fighting moves really makes them feel kind of bad. I think the fact that Bruno is an Elite Four member, but he's like as easy to beat as any hiker in the game, and you know he has a Machamp and he's still that easy to beat. I think that kind of says it all. It's just like the mechanics of the game work against it and make it feel kind of bad to use. So I think I'm going to put it in wonky. Like Primeape is wonky because it doesn't learn any fighting moves. Machamp is wonky because it gets fighting moves, so the fighting moves it gets are bad, and it doesn't really get many good opportunities in the game to use them. That's kind of how I feel about it. Submission, yeah, submission. It doesn't even. If it was just, it was either if it was fully accurate or didn't do recoil, I'd be fine with it. I don't need it to be like, I don't need close combat. I think that move is too good. But submission just, it makes every fighting type except for the one good fighting type in this game. It makes them all feel like just not fun. You have to constantly heal them and. And also, fighting types tend to get focus energy, which is bugged in Generation 1, and that lowers your crit chance. So, yeah, it's just really, you feel let down with these guys at every stage, and that just makes them less cool than they would be. Sorry, Machop. Alright. Next up. Bellsprout. Bellsprout's another silly guy. I like this evolution line design-wise. They're funny. Weeping Bell is so dumb looking. I love your stupid face. Alright. These guys are obviously very similar to Vileplume and Venusaur, but they have like a more, you know, they have a wrap and sort of like, you know, immobilize the opponent themed moveset. You know, so you get wrap, which is, you know, pretty much it, but that's fine. You know, that wrap is actually a pretty good move in this game, and it gives it an interesting role. It combos well with poison, which is cool. And yeah, compared to the other grass types, it's a little more offensive, a little more about, you know, dealing damage, which makes sense for a pitcher plant. That's all totally cool. I think it does a good job. Yeah, I think I feel about the same way I feel about Vileplume. Both very solid grass types that do what grass types should do and fulfill their role well. So I'm going to put them right together there. I might order these after all is said and done, but right now I'm just going to have tiers, and I think that's fine. Okay. And again, just like Vileplume, you get Victory Bell early enough in the game where it's actually useful against some of the gems like Misty and Sabrina and Lieutenant Surge. So it has a gameplay use too. That's all good. We like to see it. Tentacruel and Tentacruel. Another amazing sprites alert. Look how cool this guy is. Look how little he cares about you. This is a poison type that makes sense because it's a jellyfish squid kind of thing. You know, it's in that area that makes sense. It's kind of unique because it's got like an incredible special stat. It learns pretty flavorful moves. You know, it's not just like a very generic water type. It gets poison and wrap. That all makes sense. Barrier. It's kind of random, but sure, it's interesting. Yeah, I think these guys make a pretty, you know, for being just the thing you find in the ocean, they're pretty cool. I don't think they're amazing, but I think they're pretty cool. You could even call them Tentacruel, if you will. This list, honestly, this list is pretty positive so far, but I think some of the later game Pokemon are going to kind of get hit hard by the fact that you don't get to use them, and so their role in the game is a lot more limited. So we'll see. But right now, pretty positive. I think overall most Pokemon in Gen 1 feel pretty good to use, even though they're kind of simple, just because the mechanics kind of let a lot of Pokemon shine. I was wondering what was up with Tentacruel's weird two-pronged beak thing. Yeah, I mean, so, you know, some, like, let's see, squids, for example, have beaks, so I guess it's just like a big beak. I think that's what they're going for. Like a big, beak schnoz. It's kind of, you know, I like it. I think it makes the character design a little more interesting. Kind of gives it like an almost human-like kind of mean face. That's fun. Next up, Geodude, Graveler, and Golem. Excellent. These guys, honestly, this is like, you know, everyone... Hang on, where are you, Golem? So first of all, you know, very strong defined role, right? It's a rock ground type. You know what? It's good against normal types, against like poison types. Very bad against water and grass types. So it has these really defined roles. It learns moves that it wants to learn, like Earthquake and Rock Throw. And Explosion is a super fun move that feels very characterful and fitting. You get it nice and early, so you get to use it. It's another one of those trait evolutions, which is actually pretty cool, because again, Graveler is totally usable, but Golem's a little bit better. Yeah, I think these guys are great. Do you get and they get Metronome. Any Pokemon that gets Metronome gets a little bit of a boost, in my opinion. And Wigglytuff can't even learn Metronome, so that's another L for Wigglytuff compared to Clefable. But anyway. I love, this is a little aside also, Gen 1 has some very silly, funny TMs, like Mimic and Metronome. And Explosion is a TM? Okay, sure, why not? That's cool too. But yeah, no, I think these guys, super strong defined role, you know. Yeah, it's really good. Everyone knows that Geodude dies to Bubble, and that's funny. You could totally write Tentacruel like one of those blooper sword reports from Mario Sunshine. Heck yeah. And it would look so cool. Also, I like this Geodude sprite. Saying, get out of here! Go on, take a hike up the mountain I live on. Oh god. Ponyta and Rapidash. I don't even need to think about this. This is the most... Where are you, Rapidash? Gen 1 has some boring fire types. These are the boring fire types. You only get them in Pokemon Mansion. I don't know why there are fire horses in a mansion and nowhere else. You'd expect to find them in the grass, but no. It evolves super late. It learns nothing interesting at all. It's just a fire type. It just learns fire type moves. You can get... it does nothing. There's nothing interesting about it. Its design is also just the most, you know... It's a horse on fire. I really can't bring myself to care one bit about Rapidash. Just adds nothing to the game. And, you know, if it was available earlier, at least it would be a little interesting, but no, you don't. The game does not do anything interesting with it at all. Sorry, Rapidash. I love how the red and blue Geodude sprite looks like it has a pompadour. Hang on. Oh my god. Yeah, it's got like funny like bump hair. Yeah, you can see they kind of definitely change its design between red and blue and yellow. And obviously, I think the yellow one looks better, but this one is... I still like this one. It's very silly. Has a little more character. Ponyta looks way cooler in his first sprite, so it'd be cool. Okay, yeah, here's another thing about... Let's go back to Ponyta, and we're going to see this too when we get to Moltres. A lot of Gen 1 Pokemon fire types looked cooler than they do now. this Ponyta is actually pretty cool looking. But now it is. Oh, that's the. Hang on. That's the other one they made. Yeah, now it is. This image could not be less interesting. It is so a horse on fire. It is an ugly color too. I don't know why it's like pale beige. It doesn't look good with the fire. And then Rapidash is just the same thing, but with kind of creepy eyes and a horn. At least in Gen 1, like this thing looks a little majestic. You know, it looks kind of cool. Like I like this sprite actually a lot. This sprite from Red and Blue looks really nice. This one's pretty cool. This one's pretty cool. But in terms of gameplay, meh. So Slowpoke. First of all, again, this is catering to my personal taste. I love Slowpoke. He's so silly, and I love the fact that Slowbro is just as dumb as Slowpoke. You know, it's still an evolution of the concept. The shell is really cool. I love these guys from a flavor standpoint, but the fact that the fact that fishing for Shellder does not evolve this into a Slowbro is such a, like, it makes the flavor feel like it doesn't matter, which is super sad, you know? Imagine if this guy leveled up by like, getting clamped used on it by a wild shell, oh my gosh, Shellder. That'd be so cool, but it evolves by level. It evolves late by level. You don't get this guy until pretty late in the game. Yeah, either Super Rod or Seafoam Islands. There's a lot of water types in this game that are just cursed to basically just be Seafoam Islands exclusive, unless you fish them up with a Super Rod. And you have to raise it for a long time to get to Slowbro, so it's not very fun to use. But, you know, it's a water psychic type, which is really cool, very strong type. The fact that it's very slow, but otherwise incredibly strong is a cool character dynamic. Yeah, I think the fact that these guys are interesting, and you can catch them, you know, not too late in the game. And the fact that Psychic is very useful, and Amnesia is a super fun, flavorful move for them. I think all that, I think I like them a lot. I think the availability makes it a little, you know, they're not as fun to use as they could be, but I still like it. I still like it. I like what they're doing. I think the Shellder thing was added later in development, and the show was supposed to be its own separate Pokemon. Right, yeah. Yeah, you know, I think if that Pokemon was in the game, having it be what evolves Slowpoke would feel a lot better than the level thing right now. You know, it just kind of, it feels like Slowpoke kind of got shafted there, and it never kind of, they never fixed it to match its flavor with its mechanical in-game thing, which feels bad. Honestly, you know what? That makes it feel, I think that feels bad enough. I'm gonna put it wonky. Even though I get that there were like times constraints or whatever, it still doesn't feel good. But still fun character design. Next up, Magnemite and Magneton. I like this sprite. Looks like it's going like whoa. Bolts flying out of its head. I love these guys. And in terms of the game, so you know, this is before they're steel types. They're just a pure electric type, which is, I think every electric type in this game is pure electric except for Zapdos, so they don't stand out that much. Their stats are kind of unique, you know. Basically every other electric type is fast and frail, but they're kind of slow and defensive, which is cool. It doesn't get any electric moves that level up, except for Thunder Shock, which feels pretty bad. You know, you can teach that by TM, but it feels kind of weird that you have to use your electric TM to teach your electric type a decent electric move. Especially since it's not like, you know, this design looks like it would be able to naturally use Thunderbolt or Thunder. You don't get it until Power Plant, which is kind of late, but electric types are pretty rare, so you might use it. I think it's unique enough and has enough of its own flavor identity and is still useful. That's still positive from a game design perspective. I think you could do it better, but I think it's good. I like it. Definitely later gens made it a lot more interesting. Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd. Okay, this is another easy placement. I love Farfetch'd in Generation 1. Again, this is another Pokemon who every single generation after it, for a while, it honked. It was terrible because the mechanics didn't support it anymore. But in the first game, right, the whole thing about Farfetch'd is you get to one of the cities and you trade Spearow for it. And you get this ridiculously looking guy, and you're like, it has to evolve. Its stats are kind of bad, you know, it's a normal flying type. Every other bird you get evolves at some point. But no, it doesn't evolve. It doesn't evolve. Instead, it just gets a ridiculously good move pool. A very flavorful move pool. You know, it's like, it uses a sword, League Sword, so it has sword stance. It has slash because it slashes things. You know, this moveset is good enough to make it actually usable in-game. You know, it's not great, but it's good enough. You can give it fly too, which is cool, right? Oh, please tell me. Okay, it can fly, thank goodness. And yeah, just like the whole joke of the fact that you get it as a trade, and it's like the duck bearing leaks, so it's like this thing where it's like, it seems too good to be true. You expect something that evolves into something really cool, but it doesn't. But it still works from a game design perspective, and you can still use it in game. I like all that a lot. I think it's really funny and fun. And this is like a way to be a normal flying type that has actually character to it. The only thing I would say is I wish it learned the grass move because it has a leak. I think that would give it even more like fun sort of flavor, like, okay, it does things differently from other birds. But still, I like it a lot. And it honestly kind of slaps when you use it in game because Sword Stance is really good and Slash is really good. Oh yeah, and actually, you know what? Magnemite and Magneton is another one where the level up thing kind of feels bad because you'd expect it to be combining through Magneton because that's the dex says. Yeah, honestly, I think that feels bad enough to, yeah, you know, part of the fun of Pokemon is that evolving is supposed to feel like kind of like a puzzle that you solve and you feel rewarded for solving it. But when the solution doesn't follow with the flavor that you learn from the Pokedex, that always feels bad, you know? You know, really what I'm kind of ranking these guys on is like, how good is the flavor of the design and how much does it actually translate into gameplay, right? How much they add to the game, just as like being monster designs. Doduo and Dodrio. It's Spearow, but you get it later, and it's the same as Spearow, but you get it when you wouldn't really need a normal flying type anymore. And it also is not flying, like explicitly does not have wings and is not flying at all, so it really shouldn't be a flying type. It even learns fly, even though I think actually both Golbat and Charizard can't in the first game. I don't know. No, I'm sorry, Dodrio. It doesn't do anything with the like multiple heads. Like, that's a cool design, but oh, where's Dodrio? What? Am I a stupid Nagel? Or is it even not in this list? Dodrio. Huh. I don't see it. Oh, it would have gone in Snore. In Stadium, they had it. Oh yeah, in Stadium when it uses Fly, it just like does an air cycle. It does like a bicycle. Hang on. Let's see if I can find the video. Dodrio, use Fly. Stadium. And Pokemon Stadium too. Let's see it. This probably is not going to be looking at a game with good frame rate, and I apologize.
Okay.
No? Yeah. it does kicks. Like, I want to say I love the absurdity of it, but like, you know, again, mechanically, it just does nothing interesting at all compared to the other normal flying types. So even though this is pretty funny as an animation, I can't vibe with it. And you know, it's not on this list, but if it was, it would be in Snore. So just imagine it's hitting there with all these other mediocre guys. Okay, yeah. So here's the thing: Dodrio learns Tri-Attack for its 3 heads. That would be cool, Except, let's look at Tri-Attack in Generation 1. A normal type attack. A triangular field of energy is created and launched at the target. It's just a normal move that doesn't do anything. In later games, they made it kind of cool. In this game, it's just strength. So, there's just nothing fun about using Dodrio. It's just, again, it's just a late game Fearow, which is not something you care about, and it it doesn't. It, the stats are basically the same but slightly better, but because you get it later, you've already trained Fearow by that point, so its stats would be comparable. It doesn't add anything. Doesn't add anything. Um, Actually, even this guy would be actually kind of cool as a ground flying type, or not. Sorry, a normal ground type or just a ground type. I think that'd be cool, but nope, nope. Hey, what's up? Yeah, so I definitely, if Tri-Attack was as cool as it is in later gens where it has like the whole like elemental power kind of thing, that'd be enough to me. Like, don't you be like, okay, it's it does something, but no, it really don't be doing anything. Okay, so here's another guy who's trapped on Seafoam Islands, which is okay. Let me talk about the problem with Seafoam Islands as a dungeon in this game. The problem with Seafoam Islands is that you need to get there by surfing, and when you arrive there by surfing, you find a bunch of water types. But if you have surf, you probably have a water type already, right? Because most Pokemon who learn surf are water types. So you already have a good, presumably you already have water type in your team. So all of these water types on Seafoam Islands are competing against the one you already have. Now, Seal, at least, you know, Dugong is an ice type. It learns ice type moves by level up. It gets rest, which is cute for, it gets reasonably cute moves for a Seal to learn. It feels like a Seal well enough. It can learn Horror Drill by TM. That's kind of cool because it's got a horn. It's fine. Dugong. Here's another thing also, actually, we're going to get into with ice types is that most ice types in this game, I don't know why they're ice type. But Dugong, yeah, it's a Seal. It's a Dugong. It's got blubber. Um, so for the fact that ice type is pretty rare and unique, and this thing actually feels like an ice type, so you might actually consider using it if you find it on Seafoam Islands. And yeah, sure, Dugong is fine. Oh wait, I just remembered flying type was. Oh yeah, yeah. So flying type was really going to be bird type. Um, so that makes sense why Dodrio was changed to that. But yeah, they really should have. You know, I wish they'd reconsidered that because even like if Dodrio was just a normal type that learned flying type moves, that actually might be cooler. At least it would be kind of interesting for a normal type. But eh. Problem with Dugong, it's an ice type you find exclusively in a dungeon where the end goal is the strongest ice type mon. Yeah, that's true. Articuno does exist and it is better than Dugong. Ah, but I guess okay. Maybe this is kind of like giving Dugong too much credit. Like some people don't really use I feel like some people catch legendaries just to catch them, not to use them because they're crazy strong, right? And Dugong is like, it feels like a fair ice type, but that's pretty mediocre. And yeah, you're right. You really, if you caught Dugong, but then you kept exploring Seafoam Islands, what you're presumably going to do, you're going to find Articuno and be like, oh, that's way better. Because you also need to evolve it from Seal, who's just a water type. So yeah, I think if you could find it earlier, I think it'd be a place a lot higher. But it does feel kind of wasted. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Seal. Also, Seal and Dugong are very bad names. I le- People knock on these guys' designs. I think they're cute. I think Seal is a perfectly cute Seal, and Dugong is a perfectly nice looking Dugong. Um, but their names are terrible because they're just the animals' names, but with letters swapped around. But they sound the same out loud. I don't like that as a name. Some Gen 1 names are pretty simple, and that's fine. I don't like it when it's just a real world name. Um, anyway, uh, oh gosh, I kind of went far. Grimer and Muck. Okay. Speaking of names that are just real world names, Muck is just Muck. But yeah, okay. So here's the thing. These guys are very flavorful, right? This is Pokemon. based on JRPGs, this is the slime, right? So this is like it poisons you. It sets itself up. It's like a blob, so kind of like the longer it stays around, the harder it gets to deal with because it like it's sort of like the Blob the movie, right? It's like as time goes on, it gets more and more unstoppable. So it gets a lot of setup moves. It gets acid armor, minimize. Those are all very flavorful. It can poison you. Sludge is actually pretty good in this game because it could 50-50 shot of poisoning the target, and it's decently strong. And poison is okay attacking type in this game, I guess. You can have bug and grass types. Eh. Um, the real problem is you get it really late. Um, like really, yeah. Pokemon Mansion is like close to the end of the game. And it evolves late, and so that makes it not very fun to use. Again, it's flavor. Again, it's flavorful. You get some fun TMs, but I guess it's kind of more designed as an enemy combatant than something for you to use, and that's okay, right? This is very much like a Team Rocket kind of Pokemon, right? It's like annoying to deal with. It's more difficult to deal with in groups. So honestly, I think yeah, flavor-wise is good. I'd put it higher if it was better to use as the player could use it, right? Um, I appreciate it. Yeah, Acid Armor is super cool move. I like it a lot. Um, it's one of those Gen 1 moves that feels very fun and flavorful. But yeah, it's just like kind of a kind of feels bad to use, but still very flavorful. Next up, I would have thought, is it Wheezing after this? I'd assume so, but Grimer Muck. No, Shellder. Okay. The dex is kind of in a weird order. Anyway, Shellder. Shellder and Cloyster. These guys are cool. I like these guys. First of all, fun signature move. Clamp is really strong. It's inaccurate, but it's really strong. It's one of those trapping moves that means the opponent can't act. Um, and a water type trap move is unique and cool. And it's very, very fitting for a clam. It clams on you and you can't move and it like hurts you over time. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Uh, it This is another ice type that feels kind of random. I don't know why Cloyster is an ice type, but it kind of something about it works for me. I don't know why exactly. Maybe because clams have pearls and like pearls feel kind of icy. It just works for me. It also has very interesting stats. It has a huge defense stat. Again, fits a clam, makes sense. Um, but let's see, where do you get it? Okay, so you can fish this up too. So at least you can get it a little earlier than Seafoam Islands. You can use it as your water type. It's a cool, interesting water type. Um, it is a little random, but I think it's good enough to be, and I like it. Definitely pretty unique. And I think it has the highest defense stat in the entire game. Like 180 is like makes Onyx blush. That's like crazy. So definitely pretty strong. Probably could have given some water moves and level up. I mean, I guess the thing about that is like, you know, it gets Clamp, which is like a kind of a side grade, and then every water type will have Surf because you get Surf around the point when you start getting water types for the most part. So it doesn't really miss that. And it gets totally solid level up moves. There's a reason to keep it as a Shellder for a while. Um, so yeah, I think I feel pretty good about this guy. There are definitely worse water types in Gen 1, that is for darn sure. Okay. Alright. Alright. I don't think anyone is going to be surprised. Excellent. Gengar, Ghastly, uh, Ghastly and Haunter and Gengar are so cool. The fact that you only find them in Pokemon Tower, which is like this really cool secret, not secret, this really cool, unique feeling area. It's exclusive to there. The fact that it is the only ghost type in the game. So I've heard some people say, like, complain about the fact that Kanto has only one ghost type family and only one dragon type family. I don't really agree with that. I think the fact that these types are super rare makes them fun. And also the fact that Kanto, because level up move pools are very simple and mostly based around a normal type move and then like whatever your element is, hopefully. The fact that these guys are immune to normal legitimately means a lot in Generation 1. You know, later generations, Pokemon have a lot of coverage. They usually don't use normal moves unless they're a normal type, and they kind of feel bad about being a normal type. So Ghost type doesn't really, it's more, it doesn't really feel that cool. But in Gen 1, like, there are a lot of Pokemon who just can't hit these guys or really are not good at hitting these guys. And that gives them, like, such a special game feel. And then we go to their move set, and, like, this isn't, these are not optimal moves. They're not good, but they're so flavorful. Lick, that can paralyze the opponent. That's so funny. Confuse Ray is perfect. Nightshade is really interesting because it's like, it's not strong, but you can't stop it. It does set damage. It's like this ghost creeping closer towards you. Hypnosis and Dream Eater, so perfect. Such a flavorful move set, and you can give it a bunch of fun special moves by TM. And again, that makes total sense. You can imagine this thing can do some magic stuff. I and they have really fun stats. They do the whole trading thing where Haunter is totally good, but Gengar is even better. I They're amazing, awesome. Um, oh, the water move thing was for Grimer. Oh, I would love Grimer learning some water moves. That would be very fitting. Because it's like very liquidy. I could imagine it using Surf or maybe even Bubble Beam. That'd be cool. That would be a fun little twist. I like Gastly and Haunter, but I feel like Gengar kind of drops the ball in design. Okay, so from a character design perspective, I think what they're going for is a ghost becoming corporeal, right? So it's like it starts out. It's almost like it's like attaining a connection to the physical realm. I disagree with you there because I actually really like this concept. But the reason why I like it is you start with this. It's gas. Ghastly is gas. It's basically completely incorporeal. It weighs nothing. It's like barely hanging on to this world. Then Haunter is a little more defined. It's still like a kind of a floating spirit with detached arms, but it's more defined, right? It has like a shape. And then Gengar is a dude. It's a scary like ghost dude, but it's a dude. So like it has attained corporeal form. I think that's really cool. Um, and yeah, the fact that Gengar looks like Clefable, I could see them leaning more into that, but even the fact that it does look like that is really cool because again, Clefable's so iconic. Gengar being a ghost type, like the normal ghost interaction, I love it. I think, even though also Gengar's another, like, why is this poison type? But I will say there's actually a good reason for Gengar to be poison type from a mechanical standpoint, um, which we will get to hopefully soon, because I think Cubone will be coming up in a little bit. But we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, that's Gengar. I really, flavor slam dunk, so many unique moves and characteristics. It feels really interesting, unique to use and fight against. I love it. Um, Next up. Oh, Onyx, 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 Onyx. Onyx, 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 Onyx. I I want to love Onyx so bad because it is such a cool, another character design um, motif that I like is like big dragons and big snakes and stuff. And Onyx is such a cool, it's made of boulders. It's awesome. It digs through the ground. It's like a giant worm. That's so cool. But then you want to use it in game, and it's terrible, and its moves are really bad. It's strong. Why does it get hard in level 43? No, and it has an attack of 45, which makes it really, really, really unpleasant to use, on your own team. If an opponent has an Onyx, it's super easy to deal with. It doesn't really do anything special compared to Geodude at all. Its moves are just kind of like worse Geodude. It gets Bind, which is like okay, but it's worse Wrap, and Wrap isn't even that great. Um, you have to teach it ground moves by TM. Yeah, they really dropped the ball with this guy. It feels like it should be this incredible, powerful, cool serpent, but instead it's just like it's like bad. That's all I can say. It's just bad. Feels bad. Um, yeah, and the anime Onyx was so cool. And they fixed Onyx by making Steelix, and I like Steelix. But even so, the fact that Onyx is so ridiculously weak just does not fit its design at all, right? Um, it looks like it should be stronger than it is, and that always feels bad. So I'm honestly going to put Onix in. Uh, yeah, I'm going to put it in Wonky actually, because even though I just said all those mean things, it has kind of, it's kind of fast for a rock ground type, which is unique for it. Um, this move pool is kind of flavorful. Bind makes sense for a snake. I don't hate Onix. I just think they kind of did it dirty. I think it's a good idea, but they kind of just messed it up. Next up, we have Drowsy and Hypno. Here's my problem with these guys. My big problem. They have a very strong concept, which is eating dreams, right? It's a taper. It's the Baku Japanese yokai, right? Which is themed around eating dreams, right? And based on a real taper. So it's a taper that eats dreams. Okay, very good. Very flavorful. Learns hypnosis right away. Good. Where's Dream Eater? Where is the move called Dream Eater? I don't see it on this list. I see Poison Gas. I don't know why it learns Poison Gas. It doesn't learn Dream Eater. And that is such a colossal feel bad moment. Now it does get it by TM, um, which helps a little bit. And besides the fact that it doesn't learn that, uh, it's a reasonably interesting. It's kind of interesting as a Pokemon compared to other Psychic types. It's a lot more bulky and slow, so it kind of has its own unique gameplay role. It's more about spreading status and stuff. Sure, that's all fine. But the fact that it doesn't learn Dream Eater, just I'll put it in wonky because besides that, it's pretty flavorful. But yeah, no, come on, guys. And it would be so cool if it did, because that's like a cool combo. If it got that like early, that'd be a really fun combo to use. But no, I don't even know where you get the Dream Eater TM. Hopefully it's early. Let's look at TM42 Pokemon Red. Let's check our good friends at Bulbapedia. Viridian City. Wait, like, isn't that the first? Yeah, it's the first city you go to. You get it right away? What? I don't remember ever getting. Maybe it's like hidden. Receive from the sleeping man in the south. Okay. Oh, so you need to backtrack to get it. Okay. That's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I like having to backtrack to get powerful skills. Anyway, Drowsy should learn it naturally. Um, yeah. Boop. Oh boy. So I'm a big defender of a lot of early gen sprites. I think a lot of them are super cool. Uh, I don't know how to feel about this one. I don't know how to feel. I want to move on. I don't like that. I don't like looking at that. Uh, Krabby and Kingler. Okay. So, my boys, the Crabs. Um, these guys are actually surprisingly cool. I think a lot of people don't really use them. Actually, let me check comments before I start waffling again. Drowsy little cool about Hypno designs the cool concept. Yeah, Drowsy is also. This is another Gen 1 evolution where it's like the first stage is kind of fun and cute, and then the second stage is like kind of just like a man, just like an ugly man, like Golduck. Psyduck is so cute, and then Golduck is an ugly man, and then Drowsy is fun and has its little mud pants and all that, and like the funny face. And then Hypno is like a man and kind of a creepy man. I don't like Hypno. I think they were considering locking some Pokemon signature moves behind TMs. You have to work to unlock their ultimate attack. So I get that. I just when the Pokemon it talks about its own Pokedex entries talk about what it does to survive, and it talks about eating dreams. That feels bad. It's one thing if it like there was like a crazy strong psychic attack that only it learned, especially that wasn't like maybe like Dream Blast or something like some really cool epic special move, but that just feels like something it should just know how to do. More than like psychic, which it learns naturally. That's just my opinion, but I get that. And there's actually a few Pokemon we'll talk about where the weird TMs kind of work in their favor. Anyway, Kingler and Krabby are cooler than people give them credit for. You can get them you know, the same time as a lot of other water types with the Super Rod. Um, and it learns a lot of fun moves like Guillotine and Crab Hammer. These are both pretty unique moves to it. I think Guillotine, a few other Pokemon learn. Crab Hammer is unique to it. Crab Hammer, another high crit move, which means that when Krabby evolves, it gets even better. These Kinglers faster. Guillotine, super fun. Obviously, I love one-hit moves because they're just kind of, you know, ridiculous, all or nothing. Um, and yeah, as, you know, like as a water type, it's a very unique stat spread where it's a lot very very strong physically, which fits it being a crab. Um, yeah, I like these guys. They're flavorful, they're fun, nothing too crazy, but I like them a lot. Um, yeah, I like it. Honestly, I might like Guillotine and Crab Hammer enough at just as moves, as like fun spicy water moves, and it gets Sword Stance too. Um, but you don't get it until it'd be nice if you got it earlier. I'll keep it and I like it. I like it. I think they did it better in later games with special move tutors gives it more mystique. Yes. Yeah. I love the I played Fire Red some time ago, a little while ago. And I got to that island where you can teach your starter the like hyper beam equivalent. And that, you know, I had a Blastoise, so I taught it Hydro Cannon. Not because Hydro Cannon is good, because hell yeah, it's Hydro Cannon. That's fun as heck. You know, it feels good. So yeah, I would. It'd be really cool if some of these Pokemon were like kind of mediocre, but there was an NPC who could give them a like a special powerful move. That'd be pretty sweet. And yeah, that's the thing. Like Gen 1, Kingler gets Crabhammer, and Crabhammer is good enough to make up for the fact that it has bad special. And you get to Gen 2, it has terrible special attack, but Crabhammer is now learned much later, and the critical hit thing has changed, so it like gets to crit like once every 4 or 8 turns. Ugh, nah, nah, kind of a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon did not survive to Gen 2 particularly well, and Kingler is one of them. But in Gen 1, it's fun and cool and feels cool to use. All right. Gosh, I can waffle a lot. Voltorb and Electrode. Um, hmm. So, how do I feel about Voltorb and Electrode? The fact that they are the mimic of this game is very fun. I love that a lot. And the fact that they can explode is very cool and makes sense with that theme. Um, yeah, the fact that they look like a Pokeball is funny. You know, it's like, you know, the treasure chests are what you pick items from in an RPG. In Pokemon, items are in Pokeballs, so the mimic looks like a Pokeball. That's all cool. I like all that. It's kind of random that it's an electric type, but like I guess because Pokeballs are mechanical, it's also mechanical, so I can buy it. Um, the move pool is it doesn't learn any electric moves, which kind of feels bad, but I kind of at least Thundershock would be nice. I don't know. You know, the fact that it gets like exploding moves makes it at least it can do something, but it'd be nice if it learned an electric move. But I still like it. I love the fact that you find them in the power plant as like decoys. I think that adds enough to the gameplay experience that I'm going to put these in excellent, just because they are fun. And also, Electrode infamously very bad stats, incredible speed. So in this game, that means it gets high critical hit rate, which is really fun, especially with explosion. You can get a critical explosion and just like annihilate something. Future games, the crit chance is not tied to speed, so it's a lot more impotent. But in this game, yeah, Electrode is kind of freaking cool. So yeah, I'm putting excellent. I could be tempted to put in I like it because it is kind of a doesn't really do anything else besides explode. But yeah, no. The fact that it has an overworld interaction is really cool. I really like when Pokemon are integrated into the world and they can do something with the world, you know, like the overworld map, not just battles, because it makes the game feel more coherent and like interesting and dynamic. So anything that does that automatically gets a boost from me. Um, next, Exeggcute and Exeggutor. Hmm, these guys are interesting. So I think I do like them. I think I do like them. So it's another stone evolution. Another one that, makes sense. Um, Exeggcute is pretty, strong enough that you can level it up to kind of get these moves pretty comfortably, I think. Yeah, its stats are fine, and it's a psychic type, so that definitely helps a lot. Um, it kind of does typical grass stuff for the most part. I thought this thing got hypnosis. Am I crazy? Oh no, okay, yeah, it gets it right away. Yeah, it does grassing psychic things. It's a grass psychic type. It all fits. Very cool design. Obviously, I love the way it looks. Um, grass psychic is unique to it, I think, in Kanto in general. And honestly, in this game, where there are no dark types and ice types are pretty rare, grass psychic actually is kind of awesome as a type. So yeah, it feels, and its stats are really good. So you evolve it, you feel good about yourself. Um, yeah, I think this is good. I don't think it does anything crazy for me to really love it, but I think it's good. I feel like they were going for their pure normal moveset. Like they were, oh, sorry, wow. I feel like I get what they were going for with the pure normal learn set. Like they don't naturally use their electric powers and explode because of it. Yeah, that I can totally vibe with. Um, that's why for Electrode I think it's totally fine. It doesn't learn electric moves because it's about exploding. It's electric because it is a machine that subsists on electricity rather than being a thing that shoots out electricity all the time. So I get it. I do get it. It'd be kind of cool if it had its own original electric attack that was like kind of weak, maybe had some sort of fun effect or like was an explosion type move with electric. That'd be cool. But still, good, strong, defined role. And Exeggutor, totally solid. I like it. God, look at those faces. Like this sprite, the yellow sprite is definitely more competent, but I'm afraid of this. This thing is scary, and I like that. I like it when a design is like, oh my god. And it, that's the thing I like about monster taming games is like you can find this crazy like terrifying monster and it can just be your buddy and you can name it Tim and it can travel around with you, I like that. I like how monstrous it is. Uh oh, Cubone and Marowak. This okay. This is really hard for me. Um I love these guys to death. What an insanely cool. This is like the best story concept any Pokemon I think has like ever had. It, first of all, the whole thing with like it uses its mother's skeleton as armor is ridiculously metal and cool and sad and like makes me feel things. That's already great. But here's the thing about Cubone. It learns Bone Club and Bone Meringue, which only it learns, and those are ground type moves, and because Gengar is poison type, it's weak to ground moves. So Cubone has a weapon from its own parent to defend itself against the ghosts that haunt it. That is perfect characterization. It's just like immaculate, like 10 out of 10. But the problem is, I don't know if any of you have ever used Cubone in Generation 1. Marowak is is so sad. Its stats are just miserable. It has like Beedrill level stats, but you get it like later in the game when you want like a good ground type, and it just is not that. It's so it's frail. Like 60 hit points means that the defense is not good enough, and it just dies to anything special. It's super slow. It's not strong. So even for the ghost types that it's supposed to be able to like hurt, um, they're usually going to go first and put it to sleep or confuse it, and it just like oh. So despite the whole incredible narrative thing, the fact that they put the Marowak goes to the top of the tower and you need to like appease it. I want to put this in excellent so bad, but the fact that it just for some reason is incredibly impotent. Actually, no, it's not for some reason. I can tell you why it's impotent. Marowak is supposed to evolve in Generation 1, but they cut the evolution. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. I think my headphones just randomly decided to turn off. Yeah, it's nice. I can tell how many people are listening based on how many people say them. Commented about the mic going silent. Hello, everyone. Just lurking. I hope you're having a good night too. All right, I'm seeing an okay hand sign from chat. All right, I am talking now. Okay, so Marowak. Let me find the sprite because Marowak's evolution is actually really cool and interesting. I think Bogleech talked about it. Bogleech Marowak. Aha, here we go. Oh yeah, Rachel Briggs made this really cool art of what it was supposed to look like. I love her, by the way. Super, she does an amazing job with like old style artwork of you know Pokemon, Digimon, and such. Anyway, so originally this was their idea for Marowak's evolution. Now I don't I don't get why the baby Cubone also has a skull. But aside from that, this is a killer concept that would have been so cool, and it would have given it the stats it would need to actually be like good. But instead, Marowak is just kind of forever a very, very underwhelming ground type that doesn't really do anything it's supposed to do. I'm sorry, Marowak. Also, it's interesting that this is like half of Kangaskhan. This is like Kangaskhan's gimmick. I honestly, because we're going to get to Kangaskhan, which I also don't think is interesting at all. If they had just kept the Kangaskhan concept for this, and just had this be the final evolution, and have it like be like a ground normal type that is immune to ghost moves, that'd be cool as heck. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. Yeah, they cut the Marowak Evo, turned it to Kangaskhan, and Kangaskhan is really not a good use of a Pokemon slot. Okay. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. These two I have radically different feelings about. Hitmonlee is amazing. This is the only fighting type it feels good to use in this game. That's because it actually gets to use fun fighting moves. It gets 3 original fighting moves. I don't know why it gets all of them. I feel like it could have shared, but regardless, that still makes it incredibly fun because you actually get to like hit normal types. And its stats are like good enough to actually do that. It has fun stats where it's like a glass cannon, which really fits with like the whole like jumping attack theme. This thing comes out and it kicks you in the face, and if you survive, you kill it, but if you don't, you die. I love that. And also, I'm not talking about character designs in the tier list, but I love its design. It's such a like a fun idea for a fighting type. It's got like stretchy legs. That's so silly and cool. So yeah, really nothing but good to say about Hitmonlee. It just works and it feels good. But Hitmonlee has a brother in Hitmonchan, and yeah, you all know what I'm gonna say. Um, Hitmonlee's gimmick is that it kicks you and it does a lot of damage. Hitmonchan's gimmick is that it punches you and then you kill it because its punches are special, and it has a special stat of like. Hang on, let's look at Pidgey. I wonder if Pidgey has more special. I genuinely don't know. It has the same. Okay. So, so Hitmonchan is hitting you with 35 base special, weak elemental punches, which they just don't do anything. So it effectively doesn't have the cool coverage it's supposed to. Um, it, it has no fighting type punching moves. There are no fighting type punching moves. They're all normal type, so it doesn't get any fun fighting moves. It actually gets no damage dealing fighting moves by level up. So you got to give it submission. Yeah, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. That's one of my least favorite things when a Pokemon is supposed to do something and feel cool and it just doesn't. Hello, Fredalicious, Fedulicus. Pidgey has more attack and special attack. Yeah. You know it's supposed to be. Oh, hang on. Honestly, I always thought it'd be kind of cool if the whole Pidgey line was more special focused because they kind of feel like mystical birds, right? I could imagine Pidgeot like using a blizzard or something, but no, they're just very bog standard. Um, Anywho, what did I just do? I just did, oh yeah, Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. Hitmonlee, amazing. Hitmonchan could not have failed worse at its job. And especially since you have to pick between the two of them, there's no reason to use Hitmonchan. And if you did, you got like the booby prize. You got the sucker trap. Lickitung. Um, Lickitung might be the least interesting Gen 1 Pokemon. It does nothing. You get it in a trade. Uh, I think, yeah, Route 18K trade. What do you even... Hang on. Lickitung trade. What do you even have to use to get this specimen? You trade a Slowbro. What? You have to get a Slowbro and bring it all the way back here to this random gatehouse, and you are rewarded with stats that are like, if Wigglytuff was bad, worse, even worse, and just the least interesting level at move pool possible. And I like, it learns some fun TMs, but that is not enough. Oh man, that's really depressing. These stats are like unbelievably bad, and it doesn't look at any interesting moves really. I guess Wrap is kind of, it's got a tongue that wraps you. It doesn't even get Lick. Doesn't even get Lick. Yeah, that feels terrible. I don't think anyone probably has ever used a Lickitung in their playthrough unless they were like doing like a challenge run or something. It adds nothing to the game. It's a broken Wrap. Yeah, it's a broken Wrap user, but it's got 30 speed, so it's not even good at using Wrap. I like Lickitung's character design though. I think it's funny looking, but it just does nothing gameplay wise at all. You could remove it from the game and no one would notice. Coughing and wheezing. Coughing. Look at the. I love. Okay, coughing's early sprites with the little hands are so cool, and I love the fact that these two are different because coughing is like a poison elemental. It's kind of like, it kind of grows like organically, and it doesn't. It's not like an animal where it has like a sort of typical appearance. It's more like a concentration of poison where it kind of has its own unique look. That's cool. They kind of got rid of that in later gens. That's sad, but it's cool. And I like wheezing and coughing. I think these guys are going to go in. I like it. They're very similar to Muck, where it's like um, you only get it in Pokemon Mansion where the point where a pure poison type is not good or useful. But they get Self-Destruct and Explosion, which are very fitting. They get Smog and Sludge, which are very fitting. The whole moveset is extremely, fitting to them. They get some fun elemental moves, which honestly feel like they make sense, especially like Fire Blast. I could totally buy this thing can spit fire. Um, the only problem with coughing and wheezing is that they're before abilities were invented, and so it's weird that they're weak to ground moves. Um, that feels bad. Definitely later gens where they levitate, they feel a lot better to use. But in this game, yeah, it's just kind of a poison type with flavorful moves, but you don't really get a great opportunity to use it. So I think I'm going to put it with Muck, where it's a good design that could have been done better. I think putting the face on the underside is cooler. It makes it look more malformed, a creature born from unsafe chemicals. Yeah! Yeah! Like, these two are just like, they're so cool together. I love how they look together. I want like a double battle against Coughing Alpha and Coughing Beta, or whatever the hell. Um, Rhyhorn or... Oh, God. Oh. So we're about to get into the leg of the decks where there are some really, really unfortunate move pools. And this is again, I don't I don't think every Pokemon should have an amazing move pool. That's not what I am thinking. But being a rock ground type that learns only normal moves and only bad normal moves, these are not good. The best thing it gets is takedown. Horndrill is bad because it's slow. And you only get it late in the game in the Safari Zone, so it's hard to get. It evolves super late. It's hard to level up. Its stats are not great. And you put in all that work, and you get Golem, but without Explosion. And it's a little stronger, I guess, but it's so absolutely not worth it. And Golem gets way better level up moves. And it also doesn't really even feel like a ground and rock type. Rock type, sure, it's like plates are made of rocks. That's cool. I like that a lot. It'd be a great pure rock type. And it would make it more interesting. Uh, but no, it's a ground type for some reason, so it feels very redundant with Golem, and it's worse than Golem, or even probably Graveler, honestly. Um, yeah, and its stats are very similar to Golem too, so it feels redundant. It feels very redundant. Again, this is another Pokemon that I can't imagine anyone using their in-game team because it's just such an inconvenience for such a little payoff. Even though they're really cool. Rhyhorn is actually one of my favorite Pokemon designs. It's so pretty with the plates. It's got like such a fun flow to it. But yeah, no, gameplay design, not good, in my opinion. Rhydon is better competitively. Yeah. No, I mean, like, yeah, it kind of, I guess it's kind of like, you know, there are some Pokemon where it's like, okay, they're not really meant for the in-game playthrough. They're meant for battling your friends with. The problem is, again, like, I know that in the metagame, Rhydon is better than Golem, but if you're just fighting your friends, Rhydon is the same thing as Golem, but without Explosion, and that's just kind of boring. It doesn't add anything to the gameplay. Chansey. Chansey is perfect. Chansey is one of the most iconic Generation 1 Pokemon for a reason. It's got like these incredibly fun, crazy stats. It's super rare, but it actually feels like deserved to be rare because it's got like this crazy special and all these fun magical moves it can learn. Again, very similar to Clefable, but it actually has stats where it's like, okay, even it is worth using over Clefable. And the other, this thing only gets normal moves by level up, but that makes sense. Like naturally, it's not a fighter, right? It's mostly used to running away and defending itself. But you can power it up with TMs and it becomes incredible. So that's super fun. I like it being rare again. And the other fun thing about Chansey in this game is you might notice if you look at the level up, there's a move missing that Chansey would normally get, which is Soft Boiled. Soft Boiled is a TM in this game, and I think only Chansey and Mew can learn it. So it's like, okay, there's a TM that only one Pokemon can learn. But that's kind of cool because Soft Boiled is an amazing move. If you're using potions and healing items in game, then it's bad. But if you're banning that, or if you're doing competitive battle or whatever, Soft Boiled turns this thing was already really good into something incredible. So that's a fun, like, you get a TM, you can't use it until you find the Pokemon that correlates with it, but when you do, it gets a powerful upgrade. So all of the things that make Chansey unique and fun and interesting, the whole character behind it, I I think it's awesome. I think it's like a flavor slam dunk. Um, Egg Bomb isn't great. Oh yeah, Egg Bomb. Egg Bomb is a move that exists. Um, it's very funny as a move, but the fact that it's just a very bland normal type move that isn't interesting. If it was a fun move, I'd love it, but as it is, it's just a boring move with a fun name that Pokemon really aren't probably going to use. Oh well. That doesn't track the fact that I think the Chansey is awesome. It's the Hypno Dream Eater concept executed correctly. Exactly. Because Soft Boiled is the kind of move where it's like, I don't think a wild Chansey would like eat its egg or whatever the heck it does to do Soft Boiled, but I can imagine it like being taught that. It's almost like a human concept of like boiling an egg. It's like, okay, you teach this animal A human concept becomes stronger because it's like a synergy between humans and nature. It all works. It's all good game feel. Um, Tangela. Okay, so we were talking about grass poison types. The fact this is the only pure grass type. If you were to ask someone, if you like showed someone a picture of Venusaur, Vileplume, Victory Bell, and Tangela, and you asked them which one is poisonous, this would probably be my first answer for poisonous. It looks like a poisonous, like poison ivy or poisonous weed or something like that. But no, it's a pure grass type, and it's found late in the game in a random area, and its stats are kind of whatever. It's got good defense, I guess, which is kind of unique. But besides that, it's just Victory Bell. It just does the same things as Victory Bell, but worse. Um, yeah, I really, I Tangle is such a fun little guy as a design, but gameplay wise, no, it does. Yeah, I don't know. Like at least it does have kind of unique stats. And its type is unique, even though it's kind of feels kind of arbitrary. I'll put it in wonky because I think there's enough of an idea behind it. There's enough of an idea behind it, but it's not great in execution. Kangaskhan. Another one I feel bad about because it's a I love Kangaskhan's design, but this thing is the most generic normal type that has ever existed in the entire world, and it's really hard to catch, even though it doesn't do anything interesting gameplay wise. It gets some interesting TMs, but I don't really know why it does. Fighting moves make sense because it's a kangaroo. I don't know why it gets elemental moves. There's nothing magical about it. It'd be cool if it got it like a signature move with the baby or something, but it doesn't. It just gets. Oh yeah, by the way, Dizzy Punch, Kangaskhan's signature move, is a 70 base power, 100% accurate normal move with no side effect. Kangaskhan goes in Snore. I'm sorry, Kangaskhan. You're not fun to find and you're not fun to use. Tangela doesn't even look like a grass type. If it was normal, no one would question it. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, but it's also kind of like fun that it's a grass type. It's like you kind of look at it, and you're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at really, but then you see it's a bunch of like weeds, and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, Kangaskhan is one of the few mega evolutions that I think is like really cool and really justified. Without it, it's just kind of a thing to collect, I guess. Really. Um, you should have been Marowak's evolution. Everyone would have liked you better. Horsey. This is the water type to water type, all water types. Let's move on. It gets smokescreen. That's it. The only thing interesting it gets is smokescreen, which is sand attack. Other than that, it's a water type you get with all the other water types, and it's not interesting, and its stats are very whatever. And it's and I love seahorses as animals, and this is like the least interesting seahorse ever. It's just an angry blue. Ah, sorry, not doing it for me. Not doing it for me. Um, Goldeen. Wow, look how many places you can find Goldeen and Sea King. That's funny. Um, so this is yet another water type, right? And honestly, this might be one of the blander water types because it's just kind of, mildly has decent attack, otherwise it's kind of generic. It has some kind of, it has a relatively flavorful move set. It has a signature move in Waterfall, which is just worse than Surf, but at least it's trying. It has Horn Drill, which is fun. Um, I think I think it still goes in boring. No, I'm gonna okay. Here's my thing about Sea King. If Waterfall was a cool move, I think it'd actually be cool. Because at least it's like kind of, it's this cool koi fish. I kind of do like the design. It's got like the whole horn thing going on. It's it's unique for a water type, but it just doesn't quite get there. So I'll put it in wonky. At least it's going for something, but it isn't. It still is pretty boring. It's still just kind of a uses water and normal moves. Definitely not the king of the sea. Also, why is it called Sea King if you find it in the water in like rivers? It's not really a sea king. It's like a lake king or pond king. Hmm. Staryu and Starmie. Okay. So this is a lot of the complaints we've had about water types. This does all those things right. This is another super super excellent concept and execution. It's like this otherworldly starfish, and it learns a bunch of moves that make sense. Recover makes sense. Swift is like beams of like stars that make sense. Minimize is cool. Um, and as a Staryu, it's like not super strong, but then you get the Water Stone, and it becomes crazy good. It becomes a Psychic type, which is super cool. Um, you get like it gets a whole bunch of interesting elemental moves, which makes sense for it to learn via TM. Yeah, this thing is just awesome and badass, and has a pretty unique like stat and move spread that makes it feel like a really cool dude. And it says hiya, which is fun. I think filler mons are important because they help follow the game's roster and get the player more choices. Logically, not every mon will be primo battlers. Yes, so here's my thing about that is like I think even some of these guys at the very top are kind of like that they're not like crazy unique concepts. They're not crazy strong or whatever, right? And I'm not saying they're all like super powerful. Some of these guys will fall off in the late game or whatever. I'm just saying, you know, what I want from a Pokemon is I want a reason to use it. And the guys down here at the bottom, even if you're filler, you should have some reason for me to care about you, right? Because otherwise, you know, uh, you you don't feel inclined to use it. You don't need a lot to make me like you and be interesting. You just need something, or at least some reason to exist in the game. But if you're made totally redundant by everything else, with nothing to call your own, or you just execute what you do on your own so bad that it isn't even fun to use, then that's when I think it's just, you know, that's when I'm not happy with it. That's my take. Uh, Horsey's a pretty good Surf Plus Blizzard user and Petit Cup from Stadium. That's good. I'm happy for you, Horsey. But again, like I feel like pretty much all the guys in this bottom rank, if you took them out of the game would not be much different. But the guys in the top, if you took them out of the game, I think it'd be substantially worse. Both like from a player perspective and an enemy perspective. They add a lot to the game. And yeah. I hope what I was trying to land at is that I think that it's totally fine for designs to be more standard and less exciting, but I do want them to do something. Or even just exist in a part of the game where there's no alternative so they get to shine where other things wouldn't. Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime. Um, yeah, this thing gets a lot of fun moves. Light screen, barrier, substitute, all fun. Double slap is bad but funny. This thing being a trade makes sense, because I don't know where the heck you would find this thing in the wild. So I guess I like that. You kind of have to import it from somewhere else to use it. That's kind of cool. I don't know where or how you trade it. In Abra. Oh, the Diglett Cave. And yeah, actually, I like how this guy's kind of, you kind of have to go out of your way to find it. But if you do, it's like a pretty good reward because it's pretty good. Yeah, honestly, I think there's enough flavor behind this design and interesting, like, I think there's another excellent one. I think Mr. Mime is actually really cool. It has its own gameplay style that it does, and that makes sense for a mime. It sets up screens because it's a mime. I like it. Oh, Scyther. So, Scyther is so cool looking. Look at that green sprite. This is like the coolest thing ever. All of these sprites look like they're about to completely mess you up. But uh, it is a bug flying type with no bug moves and one flying move, which is wing attack, which is worse than slash. You get it and you use slash. You don't even use sword stance because Gen 1 has a bug where if you raise your attack, moves that do critical damage ignore your own stat raises as well as the opponent's stat raises. So yeah, you get this thing and it uses slash and that's it. That is the only good move it gets, or move you would ever consider using on it. And that just feels terrible for especially something that's so rare. It'd be so cool if it was like if it got one bug move, it'd be like the psychic killer. That'd be really cool. No, no. Instead, you just get this really impotent kind of weak guy. Um, and like all of its moves don't combo well at all. Focus Energy lowers your critical hit rate. Leer doesn't work with Slash. Sword Dance doesn't work with Slash. It just feels bad to use. It doesn't get any interesting moves. I'm sorry, Scyther. And it's hard to get. It's not even like, you know, if you found it pretty early where its stats were good, at least be interesting. But no. Wing Attack is just reskin Peck in Gen 1. Yeah, actually, is Peck stronger? Hang on. Or is it the same? I feel like Peck might be base 40, but I could be lying to myself just to make Wing Attack even funnier. No, okay, yeah, it's a it's a why? 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 Oh, poor Scyther. Poor Scyther. Yeah, literally, if they just like, there's a move called Vice Grip, which is just like the idea of two pincers coming together. Keep it on pincer, give it to this guy, give it to Kingler, because Kingler is really an arthropod, so she'll learn bug moves, and we're good. We have a good bug move, but no, it doesn't get one. I'm gonna stop ranting now. You get it. Scyther makes me sad. Pincer is not after Scyther. What the? This border is so weird. All right, Jynx. Um, all right, so we're ignoring the design. Just don't even think about that. As a character in game, and as for how well it works as a character and like as a unit and all that, you get it in a trade, which again, kind of, you know, it fits for Jynx. It's kind of a weird, like, out of left field kind of design. You'd need a Poliwhirl, which is, you know, you could totally have a Poliwhirl at that point, so it's not like unreasonable. Um, it's it's unique. Ice and Psychic is pretty unique. I don't know why it's an Ice type. Um, I don't know if there's any, maybe you guys know some flavor reason why it's an Ice type. I actually don't know why. Um, but it gets, you know, Lovely Kiss is it's a very funny idea for a move. Makes it pretty strong. Ice Punch is cool. Yeah, I don't hate Jynx in terms of what it is in game. It's a pretty, you know, it's very frail too, which is kind of funny. It's pretty unique from a gameplay perspective. It feels like a good reward for the trade. Um, but I don't know why it's an ice type. And honestly, this actually feels like something that should be on Seafoam Islands, and I guess it is in in Japanese blue version, and that's it. Okay, sure. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it in wonky just because I don't know why it's an ice type. Let me hang on. Is there like a Pokedex entry? Jynx Pokedex. Bulbapedia. Pokedex. It seductively wiggles its hips as it walks. It can cause people to dance in unison with it. Yeah, there's nothing about this that should be ice type. It feels like a psychic type, but I guess that's kind of it. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of wonky, but it's got some stuff going on. Um, Electabuzz. Yeah, Jynx also, the design is very like, not even in terms of, you know what I mean. It compared to the other two, which are Electabuzz and Magmar, it kind of feels out of place. I think it'd be cooler if it was just like, there we go. I think I would like it more if it felt more akin to these designs, but it's also these guys are pure type and it's an ice psychic type. It doesn't really feel like it belongs to the trio. But anyway, Electabuzz is cool. Um, it's a pretty bog standard electric type, but there aren't a lot of electric types. Basically your other options are Pikachu, which is very rare, Voltorb and Magnemite, which are both kind of atypical for electric types. And this guy is just like rock solid, learns a lot of good electric moves, learns a lot of fun TMs, which makes sense with its you know, it's got arms and stuff so it can hit you with fighting moves. That's all cool. You can even learn Psychic, which is sure, it's kind of neat. Yeah, it feels like just kind of like a cool ogre guy, electrical ogre guy. I like Electabuzz. And I think pretty similarly about Magmar, because Magmar is kind of the counterpart to Electabuzz, and I feel pretty similar. Again, it's a fire type that gets a bunch of good fire moves. Um, I don't know why it gets confused. Honestly, Confuse Ray is kind of weird. I don't know why Magmar, of all things, gets that. I'd expect it to get like Sludge or something, but it's at least interesting. A lot of the fire types in this game are just you get fire and normal moves, and that's it. But at least Magmar has some other stuff going on that makes it a little more fun to use. You get it pretty late, but at least it's strong when you get it. Um, yeah, I also like Magmar, even though it's not that amazing. Uh, mm, but you can get Electabuzz. I guess you get them around the same time when you get Surf. Electric is better. Magmar isn't really useful for anything when you get it. Actually, mm, do I put Magmar in Wonky just because Fire type sucks in this game? Do I do that to you, Magmar? I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. Maybe, because it is kind of useless in the rest of the game too, which kind of does hurt. Yeah, yeah. Nah. Sorry, Magmar. If you were earlier, it'd be nice, but too late. Kind of not fun to use. Pinsir. All right. I feel like Electabuzz is the alternate universe where Pikachu evolves into it. But imagine the outcry from people when they use their Thunderstone on Pikachu and it turns into like a beast man. I could dig it, but that would definitely make some people not happy. Now Pinsir to me is better than Scyther, just because it has. I mean, it also has a pretty bad level up moveset, but at least it feels a little like more flavorful. Like Toss is great for a beetle because they flip things over. Guillotine is super fun. Um, Slash sure, Slash and Swords Dance don't combo well together, but I get it, and at least it can use Swords Dance with other moves. It learns fighting moves by TM, which is again cool for a beetle. You know, it's not. I still wish it had a bug move. That would really help a lot, but at least it has some flavor behind it that kind of makes it work, right? Um, it's also pretty late and hard to get, but again, it's doing something for me. It's doing something. It is being a fighting beetle, and that is actually pretty cool. That is not what I said. Uh-oh. Wait, did I read that wrong? I feel like Electabuzz is the designated anime foil Pokemon in an alternate universe where Pikachu evolves in it. Oh! Oh, in it as in the anime. So Raichu versus Electabuzz. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. It's getting a little. I don't think I've ever streamed this long. I'm getting a little loopy. I will read chat messages more carefully. Um, all right, we're getting close. We're getting close. Tauros. This is another Safari Zone guy. Um, oof. Okay, so this is very much another like need to use your TMs to make it fun to use. Um, Again, this is another normal type that doesn't really feel like it should get like all the weird elemental moves. It's, it's strong. It's definitely strong. If you get it, it'll be strong and good. Um, its design doesn't really like match with the fact it's super rare. Kind of. I guess it's kind of like cool looking, but it's also kind of just like a bowl with the tails that it whips itself with. Yeah, it's giving a little more than Kangaskhan, but but it's still, I don't know. And again, it's so like the Safari Zone makes a lot of Pokemon just unreasonably hard to catch, so it's not fun to try and find this guy. But at least if you do, the reward is good, and it feels kind of like a powerful beast. So, uh, yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, it just doesn't quite get there for me, but it's not terrible. Cow lasers. Hey, take it easy, Lilligant. Um, it is fun to use in competitive. I love that hyper beam. Um, yeah, not terrible, not terrible, but it also does not really add a whole lot to the game. Just kind of another normal type that's stuck being really hard to get, and doesn't really do anything with that concept. Um, Magikarp and Gyarados. Another. This is super easy. Again, it's so iconic. It uses the evolution mechanic really well. I love the fact that you get given a Magikarp by a guy. You can get given a Magikarp by a guy really early in the game, and its name is Magikarp. So you're like, oh, it's gonna be really good and magical. Maybe it's a psychic type, and it's terrible, and it's so bad. And then it evolves into Gyarados. If you have the patience to train it, you're rewarded with this beast, this monster. That's so cool. Um, Dragon Rage is an awesome move to get. Like these all make sense. It learns Hyper Beam naturally, which is so cool. Um, and with it, I kind of buy these elemental moves a little more. And I guess the only thing, this is, I'll leave this question for you guys. How do you feel about the fact that Gyarados is flying type? Because I get what they're doing in terms of like narrative, right? It's like the carp leaving over the waterfall, so it's flying, and that kind of gives it like a cool, it's a water type that's not weak to grass, so that's neat. Um, but it doesn't really feel like a flying type. It doesn't really, I guess it at best it leaps, but it doesn't really fly. Um, so it also feels kind of random. I don't know. I don't know if that makes it weird enough for me to knock it down, but it's so iconic that it's hard for me to think of anything other than just like top tier Kanto goodness. What was the idea behind making so many Pokemon's viability dependent on limited use TMs? Yeah, it was a little excessive. Again, I like, it's fun having to weigh what you use your TMs on, but having to like, it feels bad when you have to use a TM to just give your Pokemon an element that it feels like it should know naturally, just as a wild creature. Um, yeah, no, I think I'll keep Gyarados an excellent, even though the flying type is a little weird. I still like it. Lapras. Um, this is another this is another ice type that is not ice type at all. I doesn't it live in warm water? It's a plesiosaur. It feels very like tropical. So I don't know why it's an ice type. I guess I think someone in the chat said earlier that ice type was kind of given as like a upgrade to water type. So sure. Um, and beyond that, um, I do also the fact that you can't find it in the wild, you can only get as a gift, is some very cool flavor because it's like this really endangered species that is being like bred in captivity or however you call it. Um, that's all really cool. I like that a lot. It's a very flavorful level up move set. I like how it gets sing because it sings. That's fun. I like Lapras a lot. I think all the flavor is cool enough. Even though again the type is a little weird, I'm gonna let it slide. Um, well, No, this tier, I'm being a little too nice. You see the tiers are a little disjointed, or maybe maybe just there's a lot of good concepts in this game, but I still like it a lot. Getting close to the end here. Does he get Parasong? No, I believe unfortunately Parasong is Gen 2. And that would be a really cool move that would give it even more flavor and personality. But yeah, right now it's it's got some pretty interesting moves. But nothing out of this world, nothing unique to it, certainly. Ditto. Ditto is another. I think it would be awesome. Here's the thing about Ditto. It could be such a fun Pokemon to use if it had like double the health and double the speed. Because just picture for me a moment you get a Ditto with those stats, right? So you have high health, so that when you transform, your health is used instead of the opponent's. So if you transform into something with low health, like Cloyster, you become incredibly good. And if it had good speed, then it can kind of get the jump on enemies and like transform into them um, before they got a chance to act. So it would kind of be an even playing field. Right now, the way Ditto works, if you try to use it, is it has hopeless stats, and you get hit by an opponent's attack and nearly die and transform into them, and then you're just a worse, weak version of your opponent. Um, so yeah, the gimmick, is really fun, and I'm sure they spend a lot of time programming it, and it's so cool, but it just doesn't work with Ditto, and that makes me sad. It'd be so much fun to use if it was decent, but no. And I don't even know if any enemy trainers even use this guy. So it's really kind of just not used to the potential it could be. Um, so I think I'll put it in wonky because again, I love the fact that it exists. It's such a fun idea, and Transform is such a cool move, but it really doesn't work. And it wouldn't take much to make it work, but it just don't. I never thought about flying. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, uh, Crumpets and Cheese brings up a good point about Gyarados. If it was um, a Dragon type, that'd be really cool, but it also make it like kind of busted. But I feel like they maybe could have balanced it to where it would be, not too strong even while being a Dragon type if they had like twiddled with some of its stats. But anyway, not terrible, not enough to ruin it for me. It's still kind of flavorful. So Graham, yeah, in later generations they gave Ditto the ability Imposter, which means it transforms immediately upon entering the field, which makes it actually quite fun and good to use. You get it actually does the gimmick of becoming its opponent and fighting on an equal playing field. So that's all cool. But in this game it did not work out. And yeah, yeah, usually your opponents are using like their level up move sets, which we've gone over is very bad. So Ditto really, 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 really hurts to use. Poor little guy. Eevee, okay. So Eevee and the evolutions. Um, so on one hand, the fact that it can use 3 different evolutionary stones is super cool. I love that. That's very unique and fun. It really works well with the evolution system. It means that when you get Eevee, you can tailor it to your team. You need an electric type, you get Jolteon. You need a water type, you get Vaporeon. You need a fire type, get Flareon. That's all super cool. Um, I think that in and of itself is a very strong concept. When you get into the evolved forms, um, I think I think of these three, I want to look at their movesets again real quick. Yeah, Jolteon actually gets a pretty fun, diverse, interesting level up move pool. It's kind of based around like it's a fast dog that has like spikes, so it gets pin missile, which is kind of cool. Um, it's got something going on with the spines and all that. Vaporeon, again, it's got something going on. It's like it can turn into water. So it gets acid armor. That's cool. So again, there's some flavor going on there. It's not just a generic water type. Flareon is again, it's just like I don't know what it was about fire types in this game. They didn't get any interesting moves at all, and they all kind of get the same moves. And unlike the other two, Flareon does nothing besides fire and normal. And conceptually, whereas these other two kind of feel like elementals of their type, Flareon is just kind of like it's just kind of a, you know, if it wasn't colored red and yellow, you wouldn't even know it was a fire type, right? And also fire types just aren't very good in this game anyway, so it's not very fun to use. Whereas these other two actually kind of fill roles. Yeah, I think honestly, for being, you know, Eevee is such a cool concept, so I'm gonna put both Jolteon and Vaporeon as very successful executions on that idea. But Flareon, if you pick Flareon, you kind of just feel bad. I feel like they should have paired up Fire and Ground, like how Water and Ice go together. Yeah, yeah, give it like that'd be a cool idea. It's like make it volcanic, where it like maybe has a I don't know, I don't know. I guess if Vaporeon's kind of like a chimera, you could make Flareon like part. I'm trying to think what animal would be cool. I don't know exactly what, but they definitely could have done more with the concept. But right now, it is really just a fire guy. I'm going to put it in Snore. It's really boring. Sorry, Flareon. But yeah, Vaporeon, cool moves, cool concept. Jolteon, cool moves, cool concept. I like them both. Um, Porygon. So here's a funny story about Porygon that I learned recently. So Porygon is terrible in terms of using in game. You have to get a lot of money to pay for it, and you get like this incredibly bad normal type. But it gets some very silly fun moves. Sharpen is not that interesting, but it's funny. Literally, you're reducing your poly count to be sharper, to have more attack. That's a funny concept. And conversion is a super cool move. You get your opponent's type, which actually can be good, you know, depending on the matchup. It gets a lot of fun elemental moves, which makes sense for a computer Pokemon. But the reason it's so bad, apparently, is that the designers were kind of miffed that people were like ignoring 2D games in favor of 3D games, and they were kind of saying, "Hey, look, 2D games can be great too." And Pokemon kind of proved that out because it was a Game Boy game released in '96 when Game Boy games were really kind of falling out of fashion, but it still became a cultural icon. So they were right. You know, 2D games can be great. I kind of wish Pokemon still made 2D games because I think it fits the monster taming format better in general. But Porygon as a concept is very funny. It is a kind of a shame that it's not that great to use, but I think it's you can give it just enough like fun attacks and have fun moves and stuff that I still like it, and I think it's a really fun, clever concept. Doesn't add a ton to the game, but it's definitely there and fun. Um, Ammonite, Omastar, Kabuto, Kabutops. So I think these guys are pretty similar. I like both of them. The fossil idea is so fun. Um, you know, just as a concept, like the fact you get to revive fossils, that's so cool. Um, they don't have incredibly interesting move sets. They don't learn rock moves because the rock part of them is just because they were a fossil. So I think that makes sense and is totally flavorful. And it gives them kind of interesting profile where they're defensively, you know, they resist normal moves, which is cool. Uh, and you get them right before Blaine, and they quad resist fire moves, which makes them useful. You know, even though you're going to get them late in the game, they're still useful. And they have pretty flavorful move sets. So I like these guys both a lot. Um, I think of the two, yeah, I think they're both, I like it. I think they're both, I like it. I don't do anything absolutely crazy, but I like them. Porygon is actually a jab at people telling Masuda he should make Pokemon 3D instead. Okay, that's pretty much what I was driving at. And yeah, that's a very funny idea. It's weird that both fossils are rock water. Yeah, like I think I like it in this context because it's another one where you can only have one or the other, so it's not really redundant, right? It's just like which flavor of rock water do you choose? You go for the more physical one or the more special one. You know, both have their advantages and disadvantages. They're both very unique feeling designs despite being the same type. They both kind of do their own thing. So I like that. And I think rock water is pretty cool as a type in game. Um, Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl uh, is fine. It's another, you know, it has a pretty maligned moveset again, but at least when you get it, you can teach it fly right away. Um, and it is like incredibly fast. So it's strong enough that even if though it's just using normal moves, it's like using them well, right? It's not amazing, but also rock flying is a cool type, and it makes sense for Aerodactyl to be rock flying type. So that's all cool. I think I like you, Aerodactyl, but I don't love you. And honestly, I think actually these guys are cool enough. They feel cool enough. I'll put them out there. When you revive them, they start horrendously underleveled at 25. Ah, I don't know. I mean, like, so here's the thing: you revive them at that level, but then you have an entire gym and like mansion where they have like an incredibly good matchup against everything, right? Like all those fire types with only fire and normal moves, they can just trash them. You teach them surf, they just trash everything, and they level up, and they're really good. Like I feel like even though they're late in the game, Game Freak kind of thought about that and gave them an opportunity to thrive, right? And you can use them alongside another water type because they kind of do different things than normal water types do a little bit. Um, so yeah, I think they do fit in their niche quite well. All right, almost at the end here. Snorlax is easy. It's perfect. It's so perfect. Its design and its move pool fit perfectly. Actually, why does it learn Harden? That's kind of weird. But besides that, Amnesia is super flavorful. The fact that you find it in the overworld and it blocks your path, and you have to use the Pokeflute to wake it is so fun. I love all that. Um, it makes it like feel like this fun impediment kind of little like mini boss fight. Yeah, it's a little weird that it learns all the elemental moves, but something about Snorlax kind of makes me buy it. Or maybe I'm just being biased because I like the design, but I think Snorlax adds a lot to the game. I think it's a very fun, iconic kind of part of Gen 1. Such an inventive idea for a roadblock. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Articuno. Okay, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. So this is this is kind of funny. This is actually going to perfectly mirror the evolutions because Zapdos and Articuno both get to be legendaries at the end of dungeons, which is an awesome concept that I love and I wish the games did more often. They feel like rewards for traveling through a tricky optional dungeon, and they feel appropriately strong, and that's all really cool. Unique type, that's really cool. So yeah, they're excellent. They feel like what legendary should be. Moltres does not get its own dungeon. It's in Victory Road, just kind of chilling in a random corner of Victory Road, which is fine, but it's like because it's not an optional dungeon, it feels less cool. And the thing about Moltres is that while Articuno gets Blizzard right away, and Zapdos gets Thunder right away, and Drill Peck, right? So Ice Beam, Blizzard, Drill Peck, and Thunder. What does Moltres get? Moltres gets Leer and Fire Spin. Oh. So you have to use your Fire Blast TM on this guy, and that, like, again, I get it if not every Pokemon gets the best level up moves, but that is such a bad feeling. Oh my god. And again, the fact that it doesn't even get its own dungeon, really, like, I still like the fact that it's a cool legendary that's kind of like a little bit off the beaten path. So I'll give you a little bit. Earns Sky Attack, which is cool, but man, fire types really just kind of they didn't give him a chance to do what they wanted to do, and that's a darn shame. Um, all right, just a few more now. Dragonite. So Dragonite is also, yeah, super cool. This is another one where it feels more like it's a dragon type because of its defenses rather than its offenses. Dragon is not really an attacking type in this game at all. It doesn't really matter. Really, what it is it resists all the starter types, which is super cool because it's like, okay, if a player relied on their starter up to this point, Dragon's going to give them trouble. But it has an Achilles heel and ice. It's 4 times weak to ice, so that means Lance is really strong, but you have a way to beat him if you know how. And that feels very fitting because it's a dragon. It's cold-blooded. It's going to be weak to ice. I like all that. I like the fact that it's hard to raise. It's not really something you use in game. It's something you use to fight your friends with. After you see Lances and you're like, how do I get that? It's so cool. So I don't mind the fact that it's rare and hard to get. Like that, for this guy, it works. Flavorful level up move pool. Yeah, I really like it. No, do you learn Fly? Okay, Dragonite. Dragonite doesn't learn Fly. Come on, man. Why were they so stingy with Fly? What? That's a little bit of a shame. I feel like Dragonite's known for flying. Okay. It's still really cool. I still really love it as a boss monster. Um, mm, and even though I talked about how Dragon is more of a defensive type, the fact that there are no Dragon moves that deals damage does feel a little like a little bit of a missed opportunity, or like a little, like Dragon Rage so late is not good. Yeah, it's close. It's definitely still really cool, but I think I think they could have really nailed it. Um, Let me check chat real quick. I like how ice types are hard to find, like people have spread info about Seafoam Islands and how to beat Lance. Yes, that's perfect. And Articuno is perfect for that. As like you know, you got to go out of your way to get it, but you get rewarded for it. That's so cool. Um, so yeah, really, really strong execution there. It's just a little. There's a few things that are a little too maligned about it. Mewtwo is the bee's knees. Mewtwo is so cool. Again, it's a legendary at the end of an optional dungeon, which I love. It's got lore behind it, which is so cool, and the lore ties into the gameplay, which is that it's disgusting. It's just unbelievably powerful, and that being like the final game reward at the end of the game is just awesome. That's so cool. You don't really have a point in using it besides like making your friend cry, but it's it's just such a fun thing to put at the end of the game, and it feels appropriately powerful for the work you have to go through to get it. Um, and the fact that it can learn so many different kinds of moves makes sense for like something that was artificially created to be like a perfect fighter. It's very Dragon Ball, and it does that well. So yeah, Mewtwo is radical. They could have made Hyper Beam Dragon. Ooh, that would have been cool. That would have been neat. Although Tauros would have been sad about that, but it would have been cool. And Mew, Mew. Yeah, no. This also, it's kind of funny for me to put Mew in excellent as like a game design thing, where because it's not even really in the game, but like just the fact that there's a Pokemon in the game that you can't get unless either through glitches or an event trade, that's fun. That's just fun. I'm glad that it's not like it ruins the game that it's not there, but the fact that there's a secret in there that's so hard to get is fun. And glitches are kind of a part of Generation 1, and the fact that it's a Pokemon you only get through glitches really is so cool. And it like the fact that they learn every move and it's like the ancestor of all Pokemon, it feels very legendary. And the fact that it's like really cute as opposed to being very cool, it's the basis for Mewtwo. Um, yeah, I love it. I think it's such a fun way to end it adds such a sense of mystique to Gen 1 that I think is perfect. Um, and yeah, it learns Transform, which is so cool. Just like, yeah, even though it's kind of not really in the game at all, I think it is just very fun that it exists. All right. So that's the kit and caboodle. Um, that is how I feel about every Generation 1 Pokemon as a game design concept, how well I think they're executed in Gen 1. Um, how much they contribute to a playthrough, how fun they are to use, all that stuff. Just sort of like what they add to the game. And I think it is a testament. I think Gen 1 has a lot of really strong ideas. There are some like kind of redundant ideas or whatever, but even the guys here at the bottom, I will say, even like you can still play the game with Golduck or Venomoth or Rapidash or most of these guys, and you know they can beat the game, right? Pidgeot can certainly beat the game. I used a Pidgeot in my most recent playthrough. It was totally it worked, right? Um, Pretty much all these guys are good enough to beat the game with, which I think is really cool. Later games, I think the kind of the difference between good and bad Pokemon got a lot wider. Um, But yeah, I think that's a strength of Generation 1, is that like even like kind of the crummy, not interesting Pokemon at least can do something. Mew is the X factor in Pokemon's popularity, gives the game such a sense of mystique. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, I love secrets in games, and Mew is just like the perfect kind of secret. Um, Thank you, Graham. I appreciate that. This was just a fun thing for me to try. I might try I might try different. Um, would you consider doing Gen 2? Oh man, do you want to hear me upset? If you want to hear me upset, I can go through the way Gen 2. Oh gosh, I I love Johto. I have such fond memories of playing Pokemon Crystal growing up. Um, but they like remember the whole thing I was talking about how like even the worst Kanto Pokemon, unless it's I think like Ditto is probably the only one that's unusable. I think everything else here at least you can totally use and beat the game with. Johto, Gen 2, there's just a lot of Pokemon who are just like abysmal. Like abysmal. Either they came from Gen 1 and the mechanics changed, they're not good anymore, or Johto being Johto, it's just like a single stage pile of crap like Yanma or something. That's like it has a fun design, but it doesn't do anything. Um, so yeah, Gen 2 would be interesting. But for now, this was fun. Thank you everyone for participating. Um, and yes, there are plenty of secrets in Cavern of Dreams. I do, one thing I love about old games is secrets. Um, and I think that's something I do kind of miss with the internet age is the fact that you can look everything up now. Um, Obviously, that's good for a lot of reasons, but in terms of keeping a game secret and allowing for things like playground rumors, we kind of have lost that in game design, which is a shame. But you know, what are you gonna do? Octillery, Octillery kind of slaps. Octillery kind of slaps. Actually, I don't have a problem with Remoraid and Octillery because they have a very fun level up move set. But anyway, and maybe I'll talk about Gen 2 another time. But for now, I think I'll close it out here unless anyone has any final thoughts or questions. Yanma's exists solely to be really hard to catch and show off time mechanics. Right, but why does it have to be so bad though? Why? I know I'm not arguing with you. You're right, but like you don't need to. You can make it like fun to use too, or at least do anything ever. But oh, Yanma, Yanma. Oh. Ranking Pocket Man. uh, hey, hey, I designed the Pocket Men, so they're all amazingly designed. I never screwed anything up. Um, that would actually be kind of fun to look back at my Pocket Men designs. Um, I think I did try to make each of them have like kind of an own unique thing, but you know, definitely not as interesting as Gen 1 even. And like Gen 1 is a lot of fun moves that anyway. Cabin of Dreams has a kind of a spooky vibe to it to me. Yep. Yeah, that was intentional. The game is actually, I guess I'm just going. I guess I'll just stay on and chat about Cabin of Dreams to anyone who wants to talk about it for a little bit. Then I'm going to hit the hay. But before that, yes, the game is very much based on my dreams and nightmares as a kid. And because as a kid I grew up playing these N64 games, Banjo, Mario, Zelda, um, they had these worlds where, you know, they weren't like, I think a lot of the time they weren't trying to be super creepy intentionally, right? Ocarina of Time was, but like Mario 64 and Banjo were not, they were light, cartoony, fun games, but they had moments where the environment was really creepy or the music would get really creepy. Like in Big Boo's Haunt in Mario 64 is like this. Most of the levels are happy-go-lucky, and then you have this mansion with a horrifying soundtrack and a terrifying piano. Uh, that's kind of what I was going for in Cavern of Dreams. Is like this surreal blend of like cute and fun and joyful, and like weird and surreal and like kind of sinister. Um, Oh yeah, yes, Pocket Mantail does have a few unused Pokemon, or Pocket Man, excuse me. How could I say that? And one of them is the Bat. I made that game in a week, so I didn't have time to add everything I wanted to. And yeah, the Bat was supposed to appear in the cave and be annoying like Zubat, but I couldn't figure out how to add status moves, so I didn't want to just add it redundantly, so I cut it out of the game. I think also Pocket Mantail, there's a small chance that after you complete a battle, the fourth slot of your team will have a glitch Pocket Man in it. I'm pretty sure I added that because I love glitches. Actually, honestly, if Missing No was on this tier list, it would go in excellent as well because Missing No is another super fun um like Gen 1 cryptid. Hmm. Alrighty. Well, I think that's everything then. Thank you everyone so much for coming along, and I'm gonna check out now. Take it easy.